You wake up on a cold August morning in 1888. The thick London air fills your lungs, heavy with soot and sadness. Your eyes slowly adjust to the pale light coming through the thick curtains of your small room on Dorset Street. The smell of burning coal mixes with the damp scent of the Thames, making the air feel heavy, like something bad is coming. You've been a detective with the London Metropolitan Police for 15 years, spending your life trying to solve the darkest crimes in the city. Your rough hands hold a teacup that's already gone cold, while your eyes scan the yellowed pages of the Times. The paper shares the usual news about the British Empire, but today something feels different, like routine is about to break in a terrible way. Outside, the sound of constables' heavy boots echoes on the cobblestone streets. Whitechapel is waking up, just like every day, with street vendors shouting, carts creaking over uneven stones, and people quietly trying to survive. This is a place where poverty isn't just a condition. It's a slow death sentence. Your home is just a few blocks from Commercial Street, where prostitutes work in the shadows and drunks stumble through narrow alleys. You know this territory well. Every street, every tavern, every corner where crime grows like weeds. But nothing in your 15 years could have prepared you for what's coming. Before 7 a.m., a pale constable pounds on your door, urgent and shaken. "Inspector," he says, voice trembling. "There's something you need to see on Bucks Row. It's unlike anything we've ever seen." You dress quickly, pulling on your dark coat, your shield against the London cold and the horrors of your job. Your wife Margaret is still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm about to hit your lives. Your two daughters, 12-year-old Emily and 8-year-old Sarah, also sleep quietly in their small rooms, symbols of hope in a harsh world. Walking the cobblestones toward Bucks Row, you watch Whitechapel come alive. Around 80,000 people live here, packed into awful conditions that would make any animal run away. Cheap lodging houses offer beds for a few pennies, but many can't afford even that. They sleep in alleys or in coffin houses, where people pay 2 pennies to sit all night on a stretched rope. The stench is unbearable, a mix of urine, feces, rotting meat, sweat, and pure human despair. The sewers, where they exist, are always overflowing. Clean water is a luxury. Most people drink cheap ale or watered-down beer because well water is often poisoned. Children play barefoot in the filth, their clothes so dirty they've lost their colors. The women working the streets have no choice. Many are widows or were born into this endless poverty. They sell their bodies for a few pennies, just enough for a warm bed or a small meal. Their faces tell stories of broken dreams and lost hopes. They are the most vulnerable in a world that has already forgotten them. At Bucks Row, you find a scene burned into your memory forever. A woman's body lies on the ground, arranged in a way that makes no sense. Nothing like a normal death or crime. Polly Nichols, you'll learn later, was not just killed, but deliberately mutilated. The cuts are sharp and precise, almost surgical, showing the killer knew human anatomy. Dr. Lee Welling, the forensic examiner, arrives shortly after. He studies the body carefully but avoids looking you in the eye when he finally speaks. "I've never seen anything like this, Inspector," he says. The wounds show a knowledge of anatomy, and the violence seems meant to send a message. In the days that follow, you throw yourself into the case like a man possessed. You question prostitutes, pimps, tavern owners, anyone who might have seen something. But Whitechapel is a place where nobody sees anything. Nobody knows anything, and everyone is afraid. People distrust the police deeply. They see you as just another tool of oppression against the poor. Your nights become sleepless. You wander the dark streets, watching shadows, listening for strange sounds. At night, Whitechapel is even scarier than by day. Few gas lamps work. Many are broken or missing. The alleys turn into black tunnels where anything can happen. The night smells worse, thick with sweat, sewers and smoke from the few working chimneys. It's a smell of despair that sticks to your skin and your soul. On September 8th, just 8 days after the first crime, you get another call. This time, Annie Chapman was found in the yard of 29 Hambury Street. The mutilation is worse, more detailed and planned. The killer removed internal organs with surgical skill, taking them as gruesome trophies. The London newspapers explode with the story. The Times, the Daily Telegraph, the Star, all fill pages with what they call the Whitechapel crimes. Journalists write horrifying details with a twisted delight disguised as concern. Sales soar, and the more sensational the story, the more papers sell. Headlines scream, "Terror in Whitechapel," and "Bloodthirsty demon haunts London." Wild rumors spread about satanic cults, mad doctors, foreigners. Victorian fear and prejudice fuel hateful scapegoating against Jews, Poles, anyone who can be blamed. You read every word in the papers, looking for clues, hoping the reporters might have found something you missed. But their stories are more about drama than facts, more about panic than real investigation. They don't realize that every detail they print might be helping the killer get better or stay one step ahead. At dinner, your wife Margaret starts to worry. She asks about the cases with a mix of curiosity and fear. "The papers say terrible things," she says, serving hot soup in a cracked bowl. "They say he could strike any woman anywhere." You try to calm her, but your words don't feel real even to yourself. You tell her the killer seems to pick certain women, prostitutes from Whitechapel. You're safe here. But inside, a cold doubt creeps in. Are they really safe? What do you really know about this killer? Emily, your oldest daughter, shows a dark curiosity that's normal for her age. "Daddy, is it true he takes parts of women's bodies?" Her question catches you off guard. You realize the horror is creeping into your home, touching even your daughter's innocence. Sarah, the youngest, just holds on to your coat tighter. She doesn't understand what's happening yet, but she feels the tension in the air like a bad fog. She's less playful, and smiles come less often. Investigators from Scotland Yard arrive to help. Inspector Frederick Aberline, a middle-aged man with a lot of experience in violent crimes, takes charge. You work under him, but quickly see how the police bureaucracy is almost as confusing as the case. Endless meetings happen in stuffy rooms. Maps of Whitechapel cover the walls, marked with red pins where the crimes happened. Theories come and go quickly. Some think the killer is a mad doctor. Others say a butcher with basic medical knowledge. The pattern is clear, Sergeant Tick says during one meeting. He picks vulnerable women, strikes early in the morning, and always chooses places with multiple escape routes. But you're not sure it's that simple. The precise cuts, the choice of locations, and the lack of witnesses suggest a smart, calculating mind. Patrols increase. Officers walk Whitechapel streets in pairs, carrying lanterns, watching every shadow. But the area is a maze of alleys and secret paths only locals know. For every cop on patrol, there are dozens of places where a clever person can hide. You start to believe the killer isn't just some crazy man, but someone educated with medical knowledge. The cuts are too clean to be from a drunk butcher or a mad doctor. There's a method to the madness, a purpose beyond violence. Walking Whitechapel at night, you notice patterns in the crime scenes. The killer picks spots with quick escapes but enough privacy to do the mutilations. He knows the area well. Patrol schedules, local habits. The prostitutes you talk to all agree they're scared, but can't stop working. It's this or starve, says a woman named Catherine. On the streets, at least, there's a chance to make a few pennies. At home, it's only misery. The truth is harsh but clear. Fear changes how people live. Streets empty earlier, women walk in groups, taverns close sooner, but life never stops completely. Poverty won't allow it. People keep working, begging, surviving, only more carefully and with more fear. Then, the third victim changes everything. On the night of September 30th, the killer strikes twice. Elizabeth Stride is found on Berner Street, but this time something went wrong. She wasn't mutilated like the others, which means the killer was interrupted. 45 minutes later, Catherine Eddowes is found in Mitre Square, mutilated worse than ever before. 2 murders in one night. The boldness is both shocking and terrifying. You study the maps obsessively, calculating travel times and routes. The killer shows not only medical skill, but also deep knowledge of Whitechapel and nearby areas. After this double murder, you get the first letter. You're at your desk when a constable hands you an envelope. Your name is written neatly but shakily on the front. There's no return address. The paper feels better quality than you'd expect from a common criminal or a poor district madman. Your hands shake as you open it. The letter is written in red ink. Or is it blood? The handwriting is careful and polite, but there's a subtle shakiness that shows the writer's mind is under stress. My dear Inspector, I have been watching your work with great interest. Your dedication is admirable, though completely useless. You walk the same streets I do, breathe the same foul air, see the same shadows, but you don't see me, and you never will. You look for a monster when you should look for a man. Your bosses are useless, your methods outdated. You don't really understand what's going on, but you're different. I see how you notice details others miss. I see how you question accepted ideas. For that reason, I'm writing to you directly. I'm not mad, Inspector, just focused. Every cut has meaning, every victim is chosen carefully. There's a pattern your limited mind hasn't figured out yet, but I believe you will. Until we speak again. An admirer of your work. You read the letter 3 times before calling Inspector Aberline. Your palms sweat, and your stomach tightens. This isn't any ordinary criminal. This is someone educated, smart, maybe from a higher class, and he knows who you are. Aberline looks at the letter with the same grim face you wear. It could be a hoax, he says, but you can tell he's not really convinced. Many fakes send letters pretending to be the killer, but both of you know this one is different. The letter includes details never shared with the public. Things only someone closely connected to the crimes would know. He knows me, you whisper. Does he know my name? Does he know how I work? That means he's watching me. The thought hits you like a funeral bell. If the killer is watching you, he could be watching your family too. That night, you come home feeling heavy and tense. Margaret notices your serious look right away. Did something new happen? She asks, handing you a glass of cheap whiskey, something you save for tough moments. Do you tell her about the letter? You decide no. It would only spread your fear to her for no good reason. The case is getting more complicated, you say, trying to sound vague. Maybe you should go visit your sister in Brightonpur for a while. A few weeks later, Margaret watches you with eyes that say, she understands more than you want to admit. It's dangerous, isn't it? Not just for the women in Whitechapel, but for us too. Her intuition picks up dangers you'd rather keep hidden. Emily overhears this from the kitchen while washing dishes. She comes into the room, worried and looking older than her 12 years. Daddy, do we really have to leave home? You hug her, feeling how small and fragile she still is despite growing up fast. It's just a precaution, you say, hoping you sound more confident than you feel. The work has become intense. You'll have fun visiting Aunt Helen. Sarah appears at the doorway holding a patched-up doll. Daddy, why is everyone so sad? Her innocence cuts deep. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that a monster might be watching your family? You kneel down and force a smile. We're not sad, sweetheart. Just tired. Daddy's been working hard. She believes you, trusting like only a child can. But you see Margaret watching with eyes that reflect her own fear. The next morning, you decide to investigate where the letter came from. The paper is high quality, maybe imported. The red ink, on closer look, seems to be real blood mixed with regular ink to make it smoother. The handwriting shows formal education, maybe even university level. You visit stationery shops in wealthier parts of London, showing a sample of the paper discreetly. At the third shop, a clerk recognizes it. This is fine French paper. We only sell a few sheets a month, usually to lawyers or doctors wanting to impress clients. This confirms your suspicion about the killer's social status, but only narrows the suspects a little. London has hundreds of doctors, lawyers, and other professionals who could buy this paper. The clue helps, but doesn't solve much. Back in Whitechapel, you see how fear has changed the community. Taverns that were once full now have only a few customers. Prostitutes work in groups for safety, which means less money for each. Children don't play outside after dark. The papers keep sensationalizing the story, but now with more criticism. Police failure lets the carnage continue, reads a headline in the Star. When will Scotland Yard act? Asks the Daily Telegraph. The political pressure grows. Parliament members demand answers about the investigation's progress. The police commissioner faces daily public and press attacks. That pressure means more meetings, crazier theories, and rising panic among investigators. In one meeting, Inspector Aberline shares troubling news. We've gotten dozens of letters claiming to be from the killer. Most are fake, bad grammar, wrong details, obvious attention seekers. But 3 or 4 show real knowledge of the crimes. You don't mention your letter yet. You want to keep it secret until you figure out the sender's motives. The investigation grows, including doctors, medical students, butchers, anyone with anatomical knowledge and access to sharp tools. Lists are made, interviews done, alibis checked. But London is huge, and the work seems endless. You become obsessed with maps. You study Whitechapel's streets, alleys, and passages carefully. You memorize every detail, calculate walking times between crime scenes, and look for patterns. You try to find logic in the random attacks. Your nighttime walks become more frequent and organized. You watch Whitechapel at different hours, noticing how the crowd changes. Prostitutes come out after 9 p.m. Drunks roam after midnight. Early workers start around 4 a.m. During one walk, you feel like someone's watching you. It's just a feeling, no proof, but it sticks. You stop, turn, look for suspicious shadows. Nothing ever shows up, but the feeling stays. The second letter arrives a week after the first. This time, a street kid delivers it to your home, but disappears before you can ask questions. Margaret takes the envelope with shaking hands, knowing something is wrong. My persistent inspector. I see you didn't take my advice to send your family away. What a shame. Margaret is a lovely woman. I saw her buying bread on Commercial Street yesterday morning. Emily has grown so much, soon she'll be a young woman. And little Sarah, so innocent, so vulnerable. Don't get me wrong, I have no interest in your family. My tastes are specific. Respectable wives don't fit. But accidents happen when you play with forces you don't fully understand. I've been watching your investigation with growing amusement. Your theories are getting closer to the truth, but still far from real understanding. You're looking for a monster, but you should be looking for a gentleman. You think it's madness, but it's method. Here's a little hint. The victims aren't chosen by chance. There's a pattern, a purpose, a logical order your mind hasn't figured out yet. When you do, maybe you'll be smart enough to avoid what happens to those who get too close to the truth. Sincerely, your dedicated correspondent. P.S. Little Sarah dropped her doll on Commercial Street. Today, I took the liberty of returning it to the lost and found at the local station. A courteous gesture between gentlemen. Your hands shake violently as you finish reading. Not only does he know your family, but he's even had physical contact with your youngest daughter. Sarah's doll did go missing yesterday, and Margaret said she was heartbroken over losing it. You rushed to the local station to check. Sure enough, there it is, delivered by a concerned gentleman. The duty officer says the doll still carries a faint, expensive scent. Something you wouldn't expect on a poor child's toy. The realization hits you like a punch in the stomach. The killer touched your daughter's doll. He was close enough to do that. You can't even think the rest. Your legs shake, and you have to lean against the wall to keep from falling. That night, you make a decision. Margaret and the girls must leave for Brighton immediately. No arguments, no hesitation. You come up with a story about general threats to police families, but Margaret sees right through it. He knows where we live, she says quietly as she packs a small trunk. It's not a question. Yes, you admit, unable to lie fully, but you'll be safe with your sister. It's only temporary, until we catch the killer. Emily cries when you tell her they have to leave. I don't want to leave you alone, Daddy, she sobs, holding on tight. And if something happens, you have no good answer. How do you explain to a child that the man terrorizing London has made her family part of his cruel game? Sarah doesn't fully understand but feels the adult's fear. She holds her recovered doll tightly, afraid to lose it again. You watch the doll with a mix of relief and horror, knowing the killer's hands touched it. The next day, you take them to the train station. Saying goodbye hurts deeply. You don't know when or if you'll see them again. Margaret kisses your forehead with tears in her eyes. Be careful, she whispers. Don't let this demon destroy you too. Back in the empty house, loneliness and fear weigh heavy. Every noise at night seems louder. Every shadow looks threatening. You check the locks obsessively, investigate every strange sound, and sleep with a loaded revolver beside your bed. The investigation goes on, but now it's personal. This isn't just a case anymore. It's about survival. The killer has made you part of his twisted game, and you need to figure out the rules before it's too late. You review every crime with fresh eyes, searching for the pattern the killer mentioned. The victims, Polly Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine, are all prostitutes, all middle-aged, all killed early in the morning. But there's something more you're missing. Studying the medical reports carefully, you notice details overlooked before. The mutilations aren't random. There's a progression, an experiment, like the killer is perfecting a technique. The organs removed show knowledge not just of basic anatomy but specific surgical skills. A fourth letter arrives a week after the first. You find it under your door after a night patrol. Your hands don't shake anymore. Fear has turned into cold determination. My dedicated adversary, you were wise to send your family away. Now we can focus on each other, without distractions. I'm sure you're wondering about the pattern in my victims. Let me explain. Each one represents a stage in my education. Polly was the first, crude but functional. Annie allowed me to improve. Elizabeth was interrupted, but Catherine made up for it brilliantly. Soon there will be a fifth, a masterpiece combining everything I've learned. You'll be invited to see the results. I'm sure your investigation is moving forward, and you're beginning to realize you're after someone educated, wealthy, with access to quality tools. But you still don't know the real purpose of these lessons. When you finally see the whole picture, the one I'm painting with blood and terror, you may have the sense to step back. Or maybe your duty will force you to go all the way. Either way, it will be interesting. Cordially, your professor of applied criminalistics. The letter confirms your worst fears. There will be more murders, and you're part of the show. The killer isn't just killing women, he's conducting a cruel experiment, and you're the forced audience. You show the letter to Inspector Jim Aberline, finally deciding to reveal your personal correspondence. His face is grim after reading all 4 letters. This changes everything, he says. We're not just dealing with a serial killer anymore. There's a clear obsession with you, your family, and this investigation. He pauses, thinking deeply. Maybe we should take you off the case, he says. No, you answer right away. He picked me for a reason. I'm the only one getting direct messages from him. Taking me off would mean losing our best lead. Aberline doesn't look convinced, but he agrees anyway. Fine, but you won't work alone anymore. You'll have constant protection and every move will be coordinated with me. That protection turns out to be more trouble than help. 2 officers follow you everywhere, making those quiet nighttime walks, which you'd come to rely on. Impossible. You feel like a prisoner in your own case. On November 9th, the 5th victim is found. Mary Jane Kelly, in her own room at Miller's Court, is mutilated worse than any before. The scene is so horrible some officers actually vomit. You're called right away. When you arrive, you realize this is the masterpiece promised in the letters. The mutilations are detailed, systematic, almost ritual-like. The killer had time and privacy to work carefully and used both fully. Dr. Bond, a forensic expert brought in for a second opinion, confirms your thoughts. Whoever did this knows anatomy and surgery. These aren't random cuts from a madman. They show planning, precision, and a disturbing understanding of the human body. That night, a 6th letter waits for you, nailed to your door with a fancy surgical-looking dagger. My esteemed spectator, I hope you enjoyed my final show. Mary allowed me to fully demonstrate the skills I developed in earlier killings. The result was artistically satisfying. Our educational correspondence ends here. I trust you've learned a lot about crime, investigation, and your own courage. I've learned about you, your family, and how a dedicated man can be controlled through fear for his loved ones. Our dance ends now. No more letters, no more murders in this series. I have other plans, other cities to visit, other investigators to teach. But remember, I was always by your side, in Whitechapel's streets, Scotland Yard meetings, maybe even the taverns where you gathered info. I looked into your eyes, shook your hand, maybe even shared a drink. I am the man you never suspected, the gentleman you greeted politely, the respectable citizen you never thought was a suspect. That's the real lesson here. Evil rarely wears the face of a monster. It usually looks like anyone else. Farewell, my esteemed inspector, it's been educational. Eternally yours, your admirer, Jack. P.S. Margaret is well in Brighton, but it might be smart to keep the family away a little longer. My future projects might cross paths with old acquaintances. The letter leaves you both relieved and terrified. Relieved because the killings seem to be over. Terrified because the killer is still out there, unknown, possibly planning worse things elsewhere. You study every word, searching for clues. The threat against your family shows the danger isn't gone, just changed. The killer may be done with Whitechapel, but he hasn't finished with you. The days after feel strange. No new bodies, no letters, no immediate fear, but also no answers, no arrests, no justice. The case stays open, a wound in Scotland Yard's reputation and in your mind. You keep investigating, chasing thin leads, questioning unlikely suspects. But deep down, you know Jack vanished as mysteriously as he appeared. He melted into London's crowds like smoke in the wind. The press loses interest. Other crimes grab the headlines. Whitechapel tries to return to its sad routine, but the scars remain. Prostitutes still work in groups. Women still look over their shoulders walking alone. At night, you review the evidence over and over, searching for the missing clue that will name the killer. Every man on the street could be him. Every friendly greeting could be a trap. Paranoia becomes your constant companion. After 2 months, Margaret and the girls come home, but things are never the same. There's a careful watchfulness now, an unspoken sense of vulnerability in everything. Emily asks questions you can't answer. Sarah has nightmares she won't explain. "He's still out there, isn't he? The man who wrote those letters?" Margaret asks one night when you're quiet. "Yes," you say honestly, "and he probably still knows where we live." She says nothing more, but you see her checking locks obsessively, watching strangers with suspicion, never walking alone after dark. In that way, the killer won. Without touching your family, he destroyed your peace of mind. Months pass. The official investigation continues but slows down. New cases demand attention. Jack the Ripper becomes a file, a story, a legend told in dark pubs, but you never stop searching. Every crowd you see, you wonder if one face belongs to him. Every casual encounter, you wonder if the man who terrorized London is standing right there. The search becomes an obsession that eats your days and haunts your nights. Years go by without new letters or similar crimes. You grow old, but those terrible months stay clear in your mind, like they happened yesterday. Jack the Ripper becomes part of you, a shadow that never leaves. Sometimes, on especially dark nights, you wonder if he's still watching, if he remembers those letters, if he still thinks of you as part of his cruel game. No answers come, but the question never goes away. And somewhere in London, maybe in a fancy mansion or a sleek office, a respectable gentleman smiles now and then reading police reports on unsolved crimes. He keeps the letters he sent to a persistent investigator and fondly remembers the months he taught Scotland Yard the limits of their skill. Weeks pass after that last letter. The silence feels worse than the letters. At least the letters meant Jack was focused on Whitechapel. Now, the quiet suggests he might be planning something worse, or he's moved on to terrorize other places, other families. You start developing a habit of checking things over and over. Every morning, you carefully look around your house, searching for any signs that someone might have been watching during the night. Strange footprints in the mud, unfamiliar cigarette butts, anything that might show someone's been spying on you. The official investigation shifts into high gear. Hundreds of reports get reviewed. Thousands of witness statements are looked over again. You spend whole days digging through dusty Scotland Yard files, trying to find clues that were missed earlier. Inspector Aberline sets up weekly meetings where every little detail is discussed thoroughly. "We have to accept," he says at one meeting, "that we're dealing with someone extremely smart, not just an average criminal we can catch with normal police work." Dr. Bond, the forensic doctor, shares more detailed theories about the killer's personality based on the physical evidence. He says, "I think we're looking for a man between 25 and 35 years old, with formal medical training, maybe a surgeon. He has access to quality tools and knows human anatomy very well." You add your own thoughts. The letters show a high level of education, knowledge of literature, and skill in psychological manipulation. "He's not just a doctor," you say. "He really understands people deeply." Sergeant Tick, practical as always, asks, "But how does that help us find him?" London has hundreds of doctors like that. The question hangs there without a clear answer. You know a lot about who Jack probably is, but that only makes the hunt more frustrating. The more detailed the profile, the clearer it becomes that he's hiding in plain sight, protected by his good reputation. Your nights are spent walking through Whitechapel, now always with 2 officers assigned to watch over you. Their presence annoys you, not just because it feels like a loss of freedom, but because you know Jack is watching and probably enjoying the fact that he scared you. One night during a patrol, you notice something strange. A well-dressed man is walking alone down Commercial Street. At a time when mostly prostitutes, drunks, and criminals are out, this man wears a top hat and carries a cane. He has an expensive overcoat and looks completely out of place in the rundown streets of Whitechapel. "Look at that guy," you whisper to the officers. "What's a respectable man doing here at this hour?" You follow him quietly for a few blocks. He walks with clear purpose and knows the area well. Even though he looks like an outsider, he stops now and then to watch the prostitutes working on the corners, but never talks to them or gets close. When you finally approach him to ask questions, he turns with a polite smile. "Good evening, officers. Can I help you with something?" His voice is refined, with an upper-class accent and perfect manners. He says he's a reporter for the Times, working on articles about the social conditions in Whitechapel, and shows what look like real credentials. He answers questions with impressive knowledge of the neighborhood. He seems completely calm, confident, almost amused by the police attention. There's nothing concrete to hold him for, but something about him makes you uneasy. "Name, sir?" you ask, pulling out a notebook. "Charles Morrison," he replies right away. "You can check with my editors at the Times if you want to confirm." The officers seem satisfied with his explanation, but you stay suspicious. There's something about how he studies Whitechapel, not with the usual horror or curiosity, but with a kind of familiar affection. "How long have you been doing this night research?" you ask. "A few weeks," he says. "Since the crime started getting national attention. My editors think the public should understand the social background behind these tragedies," he explains. "It sounds reasonable, but the timing bothers you. He began his research exactly when Jack started his attacks. Could be a coincidence, but you've stopped believing in those. You part politely, but you memorize every detail about him. Average height, dark hair streaked with gray at the temples, cold blue eyes, and a small scar on his left hand that might be from surgery. If he's really a journalist, it should be easy to check." The next day, you go to the Times office yourself. Charles Morrison is in their records. He was hired 3 months ago as a special correspondent. His articles on Whitechapel's social issues are well written, detailed, and show deep knowledge of the area, but something still feels off. The stories are too good, too thorough. Does Morrison really know Whitechapel like someone who spent years exploring every street, every business, every local person? 3 months of research, even intense, wouldn't explain that. You decide to dig deeper into his background. You visit the university where he supposedly studied, talk to old classmates, look for any traces of his life before the Times. What you find is troubling. Charles Morrison barely existed before June 1888. There are a few records, some enrollment here, a job reference there, but nothing solid. It's like someone built a fake identity, planting just enough proof to pass a casual check but not a serious investigation. Your doubts grow stronger when a 7th letter mysteriously appears on your desk at the station. Nobody saw who left it, it just showed up while you were out. My sharp observer, impressive work on our journalist friend. You have excellent police instincts. You're suspecting the right person. Charles Morrison is a clever creation, not quite fake, but carefully made. You're dangerously close to the truth, Inspector. Your persistence is both impressive and worrying. Impressive because few detectives could link these subtle clues. Worrying because you might push me to take actions I'd rather avoid. Margaret and the girls are well in Brighton, I hope. Emily has made a new friend, a little red-haired girl named Alice. Sarah is learning to swim in the cold channel waters. Little details I noticed during my visit last week. Don't worry your family unnecessarily. Like I said, I have no interest in them. But my patience with your investigation has limits. Maybe it's time to admit that some mysteries are better left unsolved. Yours sincerely, your increasingly impatient correspondent. That letter confirms your worst fears about Morrison, and brings an even worse threat. Jack visited your family in Brighton. He knows where they are. He knows details about their daily lives. He could reach them at any moment. You rush to the nearest telegraph office and send an urgent message to Margaret. Change of plans. Take the girls to Aunt Rose's house in Edinburgh right away. No questions asked. Travel today. 2 hours later, her reply comes back. Got it. Leaving tomorrow on the first train. Emily wants to bring her new books. Sarah keeps asking when Daddy will come to see us. Love you. The mention of new books and Sarah's innocent questions comforts you a little. If Jack had hurt them, Margaret wouldn't be worried about such normal things. But the fact that Jack found and watched them so easily shows he has skills far beyond a typical killer. Going back to your investigation of Morrison, you find more inconsistencies in his story. The university confirms he enrolled, but detailed records of his grades and attendance were mysteriously lost in a fire that only he seems to remember. Former classmates have vague and conflicting memories of who he was. It feels like someone planted fake evidence of a life that never really existed, or at least not in the way it's recorded. Pulling off something this complex would need serious resources and careful planning. While digging deeper into Morrison, you make a shocking discovery. At the Medical Records Archive at the University of Edinburgh, you find a mention of a brilliant student who was kicked out in 1885 for unauthorized experiments on cadavers. The name on the record has been erased, but the dates match exactly when Morrison supposedly studied there. The professor who expelled him, Dr. Hamish MacLeod, still teaches at the university. When you ask him about the case, he remembers it well. A young man with incredible anatomical knowledge, but no ethical limits. We found out he was doing secret dissections at night, testing techniques far beyond what's normally taught. What kind of experiments, you ask, nervous? Systematic removal of internal organs. He said he was studying differences in anatomy among women. When pushed for details, he got evasive and then angry. That matches exactly the methods used by Jack the Ripper. You realize you found not only the killer's real identity, but also the source of his skills. Do you remember his real name? You ask, holding your breath. Dr. MacLeod thinks hard. Thomas. Maybe Williamson? Wilson? No, wait, Whitmore. Thomas Whitmore, a young man from a respected family, which made the scandal even worse. Now you have a real name. Thomas Whitmore, formerly known as Charles Morrison, expelled from medical school for experiments like the Whitechapel murders. The connection is too strong to be coincidence. Back in London, you start a full investigation into Thomas Whitmore. Records are harder to find than expected. His family seems to have erased all traces of the university scandal, but you uncover enough to paint a troubling picture. Whitmore came from a wealthy family, went to top schools, showed early interest in medicine and anatomy, but there are signs of disturbing behavior as a teenager, cruelty to animals, obsession with death, and disciplinary problems quietly covered up by his family. After he was expelled, Whitmore disappeared from public view. His family supposedly sent him to a private mental hospital, but you can't find any records to prove it. During this missing time, he apparently created the Charles Morrison identity. That same night, the 8th letter arrives, like he knew exactly when you would find these clues. My persistent detective, congratulations on discovering my real name, Thomas Whitmore. I haven't used it in so long I almost forgot how it sounds. You show investigative skills way beyond your peers. Maybe I've found the perfect opponent. I assume you've talked to Dr. MacLeod in Edinburgh, a boring man with zero imagination. He never understood the value of my research. Medicine moves forward by pushing limits, not repeating old rules. You now know my history, methods, even what I look like. Normally, that would be enough to catch me. But as you should know, this isn't a normal case. Thomas Whitmore officially died in a carriage accident in 1886. Charles Morrison exists only on paper. I'm free to take any identity I want. Your family moving to Edinburgh is lucky. It's a lovely city, especially in the fall. The girls will enjoy the castle. So many tall towers and hidden places where accidents can happen. Don't take this as a direct threat, just a reminder that even Edinburgh isn't safe if you keep pushing me to act. Sincerely, Thomas Whitmore, also known as Charles Morrison, Dr. James Thornton, Professor William Ashford, and other respectable gentlemen. This letter shows just how clever he really is. Whitmore hasn't just made up one fake identity, but many. He can be anyone, anywhere, fitting into any trusted role he needs. Worse, he's visited your family again, this time in Edinburgh. His mention of the castle and its towers proves he knows exactly where they're staying. You send another urgent telegram telling Margaret to take the girls to the continent, maybe Paris or Rome, places Whitmore will have a harder time finding them. Margaret's answer is chilling. A polite gentleman asked about you yesterday. He said he was a Scotland Yard colleague and knew specific details about the case. The girls talked to him in the garden. Should we be worried? Your blood runs cold. Whitmore hasn't just found them again. He actually met your daughters. His boldness is both impressive and terrifying. He's closing in, testing your reactions, showing he can reach your family anytime. You act fast. Leave today. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Telegraph me only when you're safe. While waiting to hear from your family, you decide to confront Morrison, now Whitmore, face to face. Your investigation finds his home. A nice apartment in Bloomsbury, tastefully decorated, with a big library full of medical and anatomy books. With 6 armed officers, you raid the place. What you find is both helpful and frustrating. Clear proof of multiple fake identities, letters linking him to hospitals and morgues under different names, but no sign of Whitmore himself. The apartment looks abandoned in a hurry. Drawers are open, some papers burned in the fireplace, clothes left behind. On the desk, you find a 9th letter clearly meant for you. My relentless pursuer. It's a shame our game must end so soon. I hoped it would last longer, giving us more fun. But your stubbornness forced me to speed things up. As you see, Thomas Whitmore has vanished again. Charles Morrison no longer exists. By the time you read this, I'll have taken a new identity in a new city, maybe even a new country. London has lost its charm for me, but don't fool yourself. Our relationship isn't over. You've become more than just a professional rival. You're my personal obsession. Your intelligence, your drive, your refusal to give up. These are rare qualities I respect. Margaret and the girls are safe for now. I've lost track of them while I settle in new hunting grounds. But I'm still watching your family, especially the girls growing so fast. Emily is becoming quite beautiful. Sarah keeps her innocent charm. When you least expect it, maybe in a year, maybe 5, I'll be back. And when that happens, our dance will start again, even stronger. Stay alert, my esteemed inspector. Remember, I could be any man you pass on the street, any neighbor you greet, any respected professional who wins your trust. Until next time, your eternal admirer. The letter is both a victory and a defeat. You made Whitmore flee London and stop his murders for now, But he got away completely and promised to return, with your family in his sights. In the following days, you lead a massive search across London. Every train station is watched. Every port is guarded. Every hotel checked. But Whitmore disappears as completely as he appeared. No clues, no leads, nothing pointing to where he went. The press calls it a police win. Jack the Ripper driven out of London, reads one headline. Police chase murderer on the run, says the Daily Telegraph. But you know it's a false victory. Whitmore wasn't caught, just moved elsewhere. Inspector Aberline tries to reassure you. You did more than any other detective. You identified the killer, uncovered his methods, and made him leave London. That's more than a win, that's a triumph. But you don't feel triumphant. It feels like winning a battle but losing the war. Whitmore is still free and dangerous, and now he has personal reasons to come back after your family. Margaret and the girls send letters from Paris, where they're safe for now. Emily writes about museums and gardens. Sarah draws bright, happy pictures. Margaret tries to sound hopeful, but you sense the worry beneath her words. When can we come home? She asks in one letter. You can't answer that. How do you explain that home might never be safe again? That a brilliant, ruthless man sees them as pawns in a twisted game that could last years? Months pass with no sign of Whitmore. Scotland Yard gets occasional reports of similar murders in other cities. Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, but none can be linked for sure to him. Brutal killings happen everywhere. Not all are Whitmore's doing. You build a network of police contacts across Europe, searching for patterns, specific mutilations, organ removal, signs of advanced medical knowledge. Some cases look suspicious, but nothing definite. Your own life becomes a constant watch. You obsessively check mail, watch every stranger, growing paranoid. Your colleagues notice. Inspector Aberline suggests a break, maybe a transfer to less stressful work. You can't spend your whole life chasing a man who might be dead or halfway across the world, he says during a tense talk. You have to accept some cases never get solved, but you can't accept that. Not when Whitmore promised he'd return, not while your family's still at risk. Not when you know somewhere out there he's probably still killing innocent women and planning his revenge. The first year drags on. Margaret and the girls come back from Paris, but you move to a new house in a different neighborhood under fake names. It's a paranoid life, but necessary. You can't live normally, knowing Whitmore could show up any time. Emily, now 13, asks harder questions. Why do we live like fugitives in our own city? Why can't we use our real names? Why do we keep moving? Why are you always looking over your shoulder? They deserve honest answers. But how do you explain to a teenager that a psychopathic genius enjoys turning life into a nightmare no one fully understands? Sarah, now 9, adapts like a kid, finding the moves an adventure, but you see she's grown more careful around strangers and more dependent on familiar adults. Margaret ages before your eyes, the stress showing in her early gray hair. Her hands tremble when she thinks no one's watching. She never complains or questions your security, but you see the strain wearing her down. In the second year, you get a troubling letter, not from Whitmore but from a colleague in Paris. Murders like those in Whitechapel have happened there in recent months. He writes about 5 dead women, with mutilations that match exactly what you described. The killer disappeared after the 5th murder. This news confirms your worst fears. Whitmore not only survived, but kept killing. Paris was just a stop on a journey that might take him all over Europe. More reports come in the next months. Similar crimes in Berlin, then Vienna, then Rome, always 5 victims, the same specific mutilations, and the killer vanishes before the local police can act. You study the pattern obsessively, looking for clues about Whitmore's next moves. There's a clear geographic logic. Big cities that offer anonymity, but with poor neighborhoods where prostitutes work without much police protection. Even more disturbing is how his methods evolve. Reports from Paris describe worse mutilations than London, and Berlin's were even more brutal. It's like Whitmore is constantly improving his techniques, trying sadistic new variations in every city. At the end of the second year, you get a 10th letter, this time delivered by a child who says a polite gentleman gave him 2 shillings to bring it to your secret address. An address you thought only you knew, my unforgettable opponent of many years. How time flies when you're busy with rewarding work. I hope you've been following my progress through the reports I'm sure you get from your European contacts. Paris was a learning experience. Berlin offered new chances to experiment. Rome allowed artistic refinements, but no city compares to London. No investigator matches your skills. Although I enjoyed my journey across Europe, I feel the need to return to where we first faced off. I hope Margaret is well. And the girls? Emily must be growing into a lovely young woman. Sarah surely still holds her childlike charm. It would be terrible if something happened to them when I come back to London. Don't take this as a threat. As I said before, my focus is specific, and your family doesn't fit the usual profile. But accidents can happen, especially when families live under false names at secret addresses. Ready to restart our dance, my respected inspector? I hope these 2 years have sharpened your instincts. I certainly used the time to perfect my methods. Looking forward to our meeting, Thomas Whitmore. P.S. Little Sarah lost another toy yesterday, a wooden horse she had in the park. I made sure to return it to the local officer. Courtesy between gentlemen, as always. This letter proves Whitmore not only came back to London, but watched your family closely again. The mention of Sarah's lost wooden horse, a toy she really dropped the day before, shows he was physically near your daughters. You rush home to find Margaret pale and shaking. A man was watching Sarah in the park yesterday, she whispers. He looked respectable, but there was something creepy about how he watched the kids. What did he look like, you ask, though you already fear the answer. Dark hair with gray streaks, well-dressed, carrying a fancy cane. He smiled when Sarah dropped the toy but didn't help her, just watched. It's definitely Whitmore. He's back, and this time he's directly involving your family in his mind games. The danger is growing. From letters hinting he knows your family to distant watching to indirect contact. Now physical closeness to your daughters. That night, you make the hardest decision of your career. Margaret and the girls must leave not only London, but England completely. You have distant cousins in America. Margaret can take the girls there while you stay to face Whitmore. I won't let you face that monster alone, Margaret says. We're a family. We face things together. Not this time, you say firmly. He wants me here investigating. Your piece is in his game, but if you're completely out of reach, I can focus fully on catching him. The goodbye is painful. Emily cries. Sarah doesn't understand why she has to leave Daddy behind. Margaret tries to be strong, but is clearly terrified of not knowing if you'll survive the final fight with Whitmore at the end. As you see them off on the ship to New York, Emily hugs you tight. Promise you'll come for us when it's over, she pleads. I promise, you say, hoping you can keep it. Sarah gives you a small flower she picked from the garden. So, you won't forget us, she says seriously. Margaret kisses your forehead one last time. Don't be a hero, she whispers. Be smart. He might be brilliant, but you have one advantage. You fight for love. He kills for pleasure. Watching the ship fade into the distance, you feel both relief and pure terror. Relief because your family is finally safe. Terror because you're now completely alone against a man who spent 2 years planning his revenge. When you get back to your empty house, the 11th letter is waiting. My lonely opponent, your wise choice to send your family to America shows great sense. Now we can focus on each other. No distractions, no collateral damage. I'll miss watching the girls grow. Emily looks set to become a true beauty, and Sarah keeps her innocent charm, but maybe that's for the best. Now, my attention is all on you. Get ready for the final game, my dedicated rival. No more teasing letters, no more hidden threats. What's coming will be direct, intense, and final. One of us will win. The other will serve as a warning about the dangers of hunting demons on their own turf. London is about to witness a showdown between two minds obsessed with their goals. It will be educational very soon. Thomas Whitmore. This letter ends the psychological games and begins something much more dangerous. Whitmore isn't interested in letters or threats anymore. He's preparing for a direct fight. You prepare too, checking and cleaning weapons, planning escape routes, contacting allies. If Whitmore wants the final battle, you'll be ready. Even as you prepare, you can't help but admire your opponent's twisted genius. For 3 years, he's turned a routine murder case into a personal, psychological war. He made you sacrifice time with your family, your peace of mind, even your safety, all chasing a man who may always be one step ahead. The question that keeps you up at night is simple. Even if you catch or kill Whitmore, would that really be a win? Or has he already won by turning you into a version of himself, an obsessive person who gave up a normal life for a never-ending hunt? That's a grim victory. London's streets at night have never felt more dangerous. Every shadow could hide Whitmore. Every step behind you might be your last. Waking up alive each morning feels both like a relief and a delay before the inevitable showdown. You build a strict survival routine. Never go out alone after dark. Change your routes constantly. Check your house carefully before going inside, and sleep with loaded weapons close by. It's a paranoid way to live, but probably necessary against an opponent who can show up anywhere at any time. As you dig deeper into Thomas Whitmore's past, you uncover more disturbing facts. You visit hospital archives and find records where he worked under fake names, connected to suspicious accidents and patients who died under questionable circumstances. Reed, a retired doctor who worked at London Hospital in the 1880s, agrees to meet you quietly in a dark tavern in Shoreditch. His hand shakes slightly when you say Whitmore's name. I remember him, he whispers, looking around nervously. A brilliant young man with deep knowledge of anatomy. But there was something unsettling about how he worked with dead bodies. Too much interest, too much enthusiasm. He asked strange questions about anatomical differences among different kinds of women. What kind of questions, you press? Reed says Whitmore wanted to know how prostitutes and respectable women differed internally. He said he was studying how lifestyle affected anatomy. When you ask about the academic purpose, Reed dodges the question. He takes a cheap drink, his hands trembling more. I had to fire him. I caught him working alone in the morgue late at night, doing dissections without permission. When confronted, Whitmore said he was studying advanced organ removal techniques. He looked genuinely pleased. Knowing Whitmore experimented on corpses for years adds a terrifying new layer to your understanding. The Whitechapel murders were not sudden violent outbursts, but the result of decades of practice and experimentation. You widen your investigation to suspicious deaths all over London before 1888. It's tedious work, thousands of death records, hundreds of medical reports, dozens of cases ignored or left without proper investigation. But slowly, a pattern appears. From 1885 to 1887, strange deaths happened in hospitals, rest homes, and morgues where Whitmore worked under different names. Always poor women, always deaths ruled natural, but with small odd details. Some reports went unnoticed at the time. Martha Thornton, a prostitute who died of pneumonia in 1886. The report mentions unexplained internal injuries blamed on decay after death, but you recognize these as signs of surgical organ removal. Rebecca Morrison, a housemaid, was found dead in July 1886. The official cause was heart failure, but the doctor noted odd anatomical changes he couldn't explain. The doctor was James Thornton. Sarah Whitfield, a seamstress, died in August 1887 in what was called a domestic accident, but the wounds didn't match the explanation. The consulting doctor was William Ashford. Each case alone seems like a natural death with minor issues, but together they show a clear pattern of growing experimentation that led to the Whitechapel murders. Whitmore didn't start killing in 1888. He had been preparing for years. Your findings are serious enough to call a meeting with Scotland Yard's top officials. Inspector Frederick Aberline, Commissioner Charles Warren, and other senior officers gather in a secure room. Gentlemen, you begin. This isn't just about the serial killer who murdered 5 women in Whitechapel. We have evidence Whitmore has been killing for at least 3 years, maybe longer. The public murders were just the last stage of a much bigger killing spree. You present the medical records, fake identities, suspicious deaths, and the pattern of experimentation. Reactions range from shock to doubt, but Commissioner Warren looks especially disturbed. If your analysis is right, he says, Whitmore might have killed dozens before the Whitechapel murders. This case is bigger than we thought. Inspector Bradshaw, a skeptical veteran, asks, but how does this help us catch him now? Knowing his past doesn't tell us where he is today. It's a fair and frustrating question. You have a lot of evidence about who Whitmore is and what he's done, but it doesn't make catching him easier. He's a shadow who can take any identity and show up anywhere. There's a pattern in his fake identities, you say. He always poses as a respectable medical professional with access to morgues or hospitals, jobs that let him handle corpses without much supervision. Aberline interrupts. London has hundreds of doctors and thousands of medical jobs. We can't watch them all. Commissioner Warren decides, we'll focus on hospitals and morgues with the least supervision, the most staff changes, and poor record keeping. If Whitmore needs access to corpses for his experiments, he'll go to those places. The plan starts immediately. Undercover agents watch morgues, hiring records are checked carefully, and new medical staff are thoroughly investigated before they start working. Meanwhile, reports keep coming in about similar crimes across Europe. Whitmore definitely passed through Paris, Berlin, Vienna, and Rome, always leaving 5 victims before disappearing. But there are signs he might have visited other cities too. A colleague in Amsterdam told you about 2 suspicious murders that didn't follow the usual pattern of 5 victims. It looks like the killer was stopped after just 2 deaths, he said, then vanished quickly, leaving signs he planned to keep going. Similar reports came from Brussels, Zurich, and even Barcelona. It's like Whitmore was testing different cities to see which ones gave him the best chances to strike. What you see now is a picture of a much smarter and more international killer than anyone thought before. He's not just an English criminal, he's a European predator using modern travel to work across borders. You start to think Whitmore might be creating a whole network of fake identities in different countries. Fake papers, planted references, made-up job histories, so he can move freely and reach victims anywhere in Europe. 3 weeks after the Scotland Yard meeting, the 12th letter arrives. It was passed through many hands before finally reaching you. 5 people in total had to deliver it. My careful investigator, impressive, digging into my past. You found connections even I had forgotten. Martha, Rebecca, Sarah, names from old times that bring back memories. They were important experiments in my training. I see you looked into my activities on the continent. Good work. Amsterdam taught me a lot, though the police there were too sharp and cut things short. Barcelona was useful to try out new types of victims, but all your efforts, as good as they are, show you don't really understand what's happening now. You keep trying to catch me using old tricks. Surveillance, paperwork traps, informants. That might work for regular criminals, but I'm not regular. Let me show you why your efforts are useless. While you read this letter in your supposedly safe home, I'm watching you through your window, from a spot you would notice only if you knew where to look. Your oil lamp throws your shadow on the curtains. You're sitting in your favorite chair, wearing that blue outfit you always have on when working at home. Don't jump up to look for me. I'll be gone before you finish reading. But the fact I can watch you while you read this proves the difference between us. You're the one searching. I'm the one hiding in plain sight. You plan. I've already acted. Margaret sent a nice letter from America yesterday. The girls are adjusting well to life in New York. Emily started school and is doing well. Sarah made friends with an American girl named Jenny. I got those details myself. You thought sending them across the ocean would keep them safe from me? How sweetly naive. The world is smaller now, Inspector. Steamships cross the Atlantic in under 2 weeks. Telegraphs send messages instantly, and people with enough resources can have interests in many places at once. Get ready for a surprise that will change everything you think you know about us. I never really left London. While you chased my European crimes thinking I lived on the continent, I stayed here under names you never guessed. Journalist Charles Morrison disappeared, but Dr. Edmund Ashford still works at Royal London Hospital. Professor James Whitfield lectures sometimes at King's College. Mr. Robert Thompson owns a nice apartment in Kensington. I've been here all along, quietly watching your work, even helping you with anonymous tips that led to clues I wanted you to find. You've become my research assistant without knowing it. And now that I've proven I'm smarter and more tactical, I can tell you the real reason for our long correspondence. You're not just the investigator I picked to write to. You're the subject of my next experiment. I've spent 3 years studying you, just like you studied me. Your reactions, your methods, your fears for your family, the obsession you've developed, how you gave up your normal life chasing me. You've become exactly the kind of person I find most interesting. Until next time, Thomas Whitmore. You live less than a mile away from where you are now. Your hands shake as you finish reading. It hits you like a punch in the stomach. Whitmore never left London. While you chased his crimes in Europe, he stayed here, watching, controlling, maybe even guiding your discoveries. You rush to the window and pull the curtains open. The street is empty, except for a few distant figures. Maybe night walkers, neighborhood watch, or maybe Whitmore slipping into the shadows. You feel completely exposed. That night, you can't sleep. Every noise outside could be Whitmore getting closer. Every curtain movement might mean he's still watching. You check the locks over and over, inspect every room, and stay armed and alert until dawn. The next morning, you head straight to Royal London Hospital to check on Dr. Edmund Ashford. In the administrator's office, you look through the records with a puzzled face. Dr. Ashford? Yes, we have an Edmund Ashford on staff, a skilled doctor specializing in pathological anatomy. He mostly works night shifts in the morgue. May I see his hiring records? Your heart races. The papers look completely real. Dr. Edmund Ashford, Cambridge graduate, experience in smaller hospitals, perfect references. But you see the same pattern again. This is exactly the kind of carefully built identity Whitmore has used before. You ask, trying to sound casual, where can I find him? He usually shows up at 8 p.m. for the night shift, someone tells you. He works alone in the morgue and likes silence to focus. He's very dedicated, but pretty quiet. This matches what you suspected. A doctor who works alone with dead bodies at night, avoids socializing, and has full access to corpses for study. Just the kind of role Whitmore would want. You head back to Scotland Yard to set up surveillance at the hospital right away. Inspector Aberline puts together a low-key team to watch Dr. Edmund Ashford when he comes in that night. If this is really Whitmore, Aberline says, we need to catch him without tipping him off. He's known to vanish the moment he feels threatened. The plan is carefully laid out. Plainclothes officers are placed at key spots around the hospital. Escape routes are blocked. Signals are arranged so everyone moves at the same time. When Ashford, who you believe is Whitmore, arrives, you take a spot in a nearby bar with 2 armed officers, watching the hospital entrance. The tension is almost unbearable. After 3 years of letters, threats, and mind games, you might finally see Thomas Whitmore in person. At 8:15 p.m., a well-dressed man walks up to the hospital. He's average height, dark hair with some gray, carrying a fancy cane and wearing nice clothes. But you recognize his posture and walk from a distance. It's definitely Charles Morrison, the journalist you met months ago in Whitechapel. Your heart races. Is that him? You whisper to the officers. Thomas Whitmore. The signal is given. Agents start moving quietly toward the hospital. But Whitmore, Ashford, seems to sense something. He stops right at the entrance, looks around carefully, then smiles slightly. To your horror, he looks straight at the tavern window where you're hiding. Even from far away, and in the dark, you're sure he sees you. His smile grows, and he gives a small wave your way. Then, casually, he turns and quickly slips into a side alley. By the time the officers get there, he's gone without a trace. A thorough search turns up nothing. He knew, you say to Aberline. When you meet an hour later, you ask, how did he know we'd be waiting? The plan was secret. Only our team knew. That question haunts you for days. How could Whitmore have known about the trap? The possibilities are troubling. Maybe a mole inside Scotland Yard, surveillance way more advanced than you thought, or intelligence so good he can predict your moves like magic. The hospital investigation shows Dr. Edmund Ashford never came back to work. His apartment is completely empty. Once again, he's vanished without a trace, leaving only signs he was there. But this time, he left something for you to find. In his hospital office, hidden in a secret drawer, you discover documents that reveal the full scope of his London activities. Photos, dozens of them, taken secretly over the last 3 years. You walking the streets of Whitechapel, entering and leaving Scotland Yard, being at home with your family. Margaret shopping alone at Mimos Market. Emily playing in the garden. Sarah running through the streets. It's a complete photo record of your life, showing Whitmore watched you constantly, tracking every part of your day. The pictures are deeply personal, some taken from places only someone spying closely could reach. Even worse, on the back of each photo are notes with detailed observations about your habits, schedules, favorite routes, and weaknesses. It's like Whitmore ran a scientific study on you, collecting data for later use. One note says, the family is the main weakness, which can be used if needed. Emily is growing into an attractive young woman. Sarah is still innocent and charming. Both would make good leverage if the subject keeps resisting. The meaning is sickening. Whitmore not only watched your family, he sized them up as potential targets or tools. Your daughters were studied and listed as part of his psychological game. There are also many unsent letters, drafts Whitmore kept private, that reveal his thoughts and plans. One letter reads, "The investigator has become obsessed with me just like I am with him." A letter from 6 months ago shows a disturbing change. A man who once sought justice, now driven by revenge and fear. In many ways, we're becoming the same. A more recent letter says, The family's breakup was skillfully arranged. It gave me enough pressure to force the sacrifice I wanted. Now he's truly alone, desperate, and completely under my control. Reading these unsent letters, you see that Whitmore anticipated almost every big move you made in recent years, and may have even influenced them. Sending your family to Brighton, then to America, expanding your investigation to Europe, and some breakthroughs you thought were your own might have been nudged by subtle hints from him. This is the most elaborate, long-term manipulation you've ever faced. Whitmore didn't just watch you, he shaped your choices to serve his plans. You were unknowingly part of an experiment he ran on obsession and the human mind. The 13th letter arrived 2 days after you found the hospital, brought by the same street kid who had delivered the others. This time, you tried to follow him, but he slipped away into the busy London crowd like a pro who's done this before. The letter said, "My dear student, by now you've found my little hideout that's all about us. I hope you like the photos and notes. 3 years of careful tracking every detail about your life and personality. It's academic research at its best. You're probably feeling a bit used, realizing I predicted or even steered almost every big choice you made. That feeling like you were a puppet in a show you thought you controlled will pass. Eventually, you'll see it as a masterclass in human psychology that you got without even knowing it. Not many get to see how deeply they can be studied, predicted, and controlled by someone smart and patient. It's a rare education, right? You might be wondering where I am now, since Dr. Ashford's cover is blown. Let me clear that up. I'm closer than ever. In fact, while you're reading this in your kitchen, I'm having tea with your neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. We're talking about how worried she is about the changes in you. That sweet lady has noticed you're acting paranoid, always checking locks and jumping at little noises. She's seen you pacing late at night and thinks your work stress is messing with your mind. Naturally, I told her police work is tiring, especially on tough cases, and suggested she keep an eye on you and support you. She was happy to help. By the way, Mrs. Henderson makes great tea cakes and has tons of stories about the neighborhood, including all the details on everyone on your street, their routines, visitors, and security. That info will be very handy when it's time for us to move from letters to meeting face to face. Yours always, your ever-present shadow. P.S. Margaret's last letter from America included a photo of the girls in their new school uniforms. Emily looks very grown up in her academy dress. Sarah's smile is still innocent as ever. Lovely kids. It would be awful if anything disturbed their peaceful life. The letter confirms that Whitmore isn't just nearby. He's actively involved with the people around you. Mrs. Henderson, the kind widow next door, is unknowingly feeding information to the man who promised to come back and hurt your family. You think about warning her but realize it might risk your position or put her in danger. Whitmore clearly knows how to make himself seem trustworthy. Trying to convince neighbors that this friendly visitor is actually a dangerous criminal could make you look crazy. So instead, you decide to watch your neighborhood more closely. You set up a spot where you can see Mrs. Henderson's house, noting every visitor and writing down what happens. It's tiring work that needs constant attention, but you have to know exactly how Whitmore is working. Over 3 days, you notice lots of visitors. Delivery guys, repair people, even supposed government agents doing routine checks. They all seem legit, but it's a lot for an elderly woman living alone. On the 3rd day, you finally see Whitmore himself. He leaves Mrs. Henderson's house in the afternoon, dressed like a respectable gentleman. To anyone watching, he just looked like a friendly neighbor visiting a lonely widow. You follow him at a distance as he walks through London, stopping at shops or chatting with strangers who seem to know him. It hits you. Whitmore hasn't just made up one identity like Dr. Ashford. He has several, each with different friends and purposes. The guy is living many lives at once, each carefully managed to fit his plans. Your chase leads you to a fancy apartment building in Belgravia. Whitmore uses a key to get in, showing he has a home there under one of his identities. The building is upscale and well kept, perfect for a smart guy like Thomas Whitmore to blend in. You watch for hours, noting other residents and trying to figure out which apartment is his. Finally, you take a risk and talk to the building's doorman, Dr. Jonathan Matthews, pretending to be a cop doing a routine check. Yes, he says, a respectable tenant in apartment 4B, a quiet gentleman, always pays rent on time, no trouble. He sometimes gets visitors for medical appointments. Private practice, I think. Another identity, another well-planned cover, Dr. Matthews, a private doctor who can afford a fancy apartment, keeps a low profile while seeing patients, likely with access to bodies or victims. That night, you sneak back under cover of darkness, picking the lock to 4B using your police skills. Sure, Whitmore isn't home. Inside, you find even more disturbing things. Several fake IDs, professional medical tools, letters in multiple languages hinting at international contacts, and maps of London, Paris, and New York marked with spots that are probably targets. The worst find is the detailed files on many potential victims. Women all over London, sorted by how vulnerable they are, how easy to get to, and how likely their disappearances wouldn't raise alarms. Prostitutes, maids, factory workers, and a separate, bigger file with even more detail. There's detailed information about you and your family. Photos, schedules, psychological reports, even plans for what he calls the final stage education. Your family's address in America is listed, along with exact details about their daily routines, gathered in ways you can't even imagine. You quickly take photos of everything before leaving the apartment. The proof is overwhelming, but you still need to catch Whitmore himself. No matter how many documents you have, they're useless if he keeps slipping away in person. As you get ready to leave, you realize Whitmore might have expected you to find this place. The apartment was way too easy to get into. The files were almost too neatly laid out. Maybe the whole thing was staged, to give you exactly the info he wanted you to have. To test this, you come back 2 days later. The apartment is completely empty. Every paper, photo, and piece of evidence is gone. Even the furniture's been taken. It's like Dr. Jonathan Matthews never existed. But on the white wall, there's one last message, written in blood, in the elegant handwriting you recognize right away. My dear detective, the final phase starts now. The family reunion is coming. You have to choose, catch me or save them. You can't do both. The game ends in New York. Come alone, or they die alone. TW. Pure terror hits you. Whitmore doesn't just have access to your family in America. He's planning to use them as bait in the final trap he's set. 3 years of letters, manipulation, and mind games, all leading to this moment. The impossible choice between duty and love, justice and family. You have less than a week to decide whether to chase Whitmore to New York to try to save your wife and daughters, or stay in London hoping to catch him. Either way, he's in control. Standing in the empty apartment, staring at the bloody message, you realize Whitmore never just wanted to avoid justice. He planned to destroy everything that makes you who you are. Your career, your family, your sanity. Now, the last part of his plan is about to begin. Late at night, footsteps echo through Scotland Yard's halls. You know he'll be there, like he's been on so many nights during this hunt. New York, you say, without hesitation, throwing the photos from the apartment on the desk. He's heading there. Or maybe he's already there. Aberline looks at the bloody message, then at you, his worry growing. Your family. He's targeting them. Not just traveling. He already knew where they were, you say, sinking into the chair. Every move, every precaution, he always knew. This was his plan all along. Aberline rubs his face, tired. We can't be sure he's in New York yet. Could be another trick, to distract us while he keeps working here. You shake your head hard. No, this is different. He's stepping up for the final showdown. He wants me in New York alone, desperate. It's his ultimate test. To see how I react when everything I love is on the line. If he wants you there, Aberline argues, that's exactly where you shouldn't go. He's expecting it. We finally got the upper hand. Don't hand yourself over to him. My family's there, you say, your voice shaking a little. Margaret, Emily, Sarah, they think they're safe, but they're more exposed than ever. If I don't go, if I don't warn them, Aberline sighs deeply. A telegram would be faster. We could alert the authorities in New York, get them protection. You cut him off, firm. I wouldn't trust that, not even a telegram. Whitmore's intercepted my mail before. He's got contacts everywhere. Any message we send would just alert him that we know. The room falls silent. Both of you understanding how impossible this is. Finally, Aberline speaks quietly. How many men do you need? I can send a team with you. We can contact American officials discreetly. You shake your head again. He said to come alone. If he sees I'm not following his rules, Margaret and the girls will pay. I don't have to do it his way, but this is my only shot. This is crazy. Aberline slams his fist on the table. You're playing right into his hands. This is exactly what he wants. Yes, you agree. A strange calm settling despite the fear. Exactly. That's why I have to go. For the first time, I know where he'll be. This is our only chance to trap him. Aberline studies you for a long moment. You have a plan, at least the start of one. I admit it, but I need your help. Over the next few hours, you put together what might be the most dangerous plan of your career. With no official backing and no visible support, you'll travel to New York as a regular civilian. Aberline will arrange fake documents and cash, while you prepare a secret code for Margaret that only she will understand. He'll keep an eye on their home. Explain it to me, he says, as you mark possible routes on a map of Manhattan. He knows their routines, their contacts, every move. How do you just show up at their door without alerting him? How will I find them without tipping him off? Years ago, Margaret and I created a system for emergencies. Ads in the local paper with special phrases. She'll recognize it and follow our plan. You hesitate. What if she doesn't remember? It's been a long time. 2 days later, you board the fastest steamship to New York. The crossing usually takes 10 days, but you paid extra to get there in 7. Every hour feels endless as you pace the deck, imagining what Whitmore might be doing if your family is still safe. At night, you study everything you've learned about Thomas Whitmore. Every identity, pattern, and habit. You're heading into his world alone. Your knowledge is your only weapon. On the 5th day, a fierce storm delays the ship. You stay awake through the wild weather, holding the documents like they're your lifeline, worrying about how much more exposed your family is. When you finally reach New York, the relief of solid ground quickly turns to new worries. The city is a massive maze of concrete and steel, much bigger and busier than London, thousands of people moving everywhere. Each one could be watching or working for Whitmore. Your first goal is to find a low-key place to stay. A small hotel in the Lower East Side where recent immigrants blend in and no one asks questions. Using a fake name, you rent a simple room to use as your base. The next day, you place the coded message in the local paper. On the surface, it looks like a regular lost family watch notice, with a detailed description and reward offer. but the words are carefully chosen so Margaret will recognize the code she inherited from her grandfather William. Silver with engraving. Time is knowledge. Return to the Irvin Hotel. 4:23. Ask for Mr. Thompson. Then comes the hardest part. Waiting. You can't risk going near their home or watching them directly. Any suspicious move could ruin everything. Hours stretch into days, every minute full of anxiety. On the third day, just when hope feels nearly gone, there's a knock at your door. Your heart races and your hand moves to the revolver under your coat. It could be Margaret, or Whitmore finally showing up. "Who is it?" you call, staying back from the door. "I have news about your lost watch," says a young female voice. Not Margaret or Sarah. She sounds like a teenager you don't recognize. Carefully, you crack the door open, revolver ready. A girl around 14 stands there. Red hair, freckles, looking nervous. "Mr. Thompson, about the watch?" "Yes," you answer cautiously. "Did you find it?" "No, not exactly," she says, "but I have a message from Mrs. Wilson. She said you'd understand." Wilson is the last name Margaret's using here in New York. The girl must be a messenger, maybe a friend of Emily's. You open the door wider and let her in. "What's the message?" She pulls an envelope from her pocket and hands it to you. "She paid me 5 cents to deliver this and not tell anyone." You thank her, slip her an extra coin, and wait until she's gone before opening the envelope with the shaking hands. Inside is a note in Margaret Thompson's handwriting. "I saw your ad. We can't meet at home." He was here, calling himself the girl's school doctor. Very friendly, very interested in our life in London. He showed them photos of you when you were younger. "I'm afraid the girls said too much before I realized what was happening. Meet me tomorrow at the park, 10 a.m. by the lake. Come alone. Your blood runs cold." Whitmore not only found your family, he was already inside their home, talking with the girls and gaining their trust enough that they shared information. At least Margaret realized something was wrong. But how much damage is already done? You spend the rest of the day preparing carefully. You study maps of Central Park, marking good hiding spots, escape routes, and places someone might watch from. You check your weapons and decide what to carry discreetly. The night drags on. Sleep won't come. Before dawn, you're dressed and ready, watching from your hotel window as the city wakes up. New York is different. Louder, faster, tougher. A perfect place for the game Whitmore wants to play. You get to the park an hour early and pick a spot where you can see the lake but stay partly hidden behind trees. You watch every person walking by, looking for Whitmore or your family. At exactly 10 a.m., you see them. Margaret walking slowly along the lakeside path with Emily and Sarah, all tense. Margaret's eyes scanning the area constantly. Emily, almost 14, holds Sarah's hand tight. Sarah, 10, still looks small and vulnerable. Your heart aches after so many months apart. Margaret looks years older. Worry lines on her face you didn't see before. Emily seems serious beyond her age. Only Sarah keeps some childhood innocence, though even she looks more guarded than you remember. You watch them for 10 more minutes, making sure no one's following. Finally, you step out from your hiding spot and walk toward them casually. Margaret spots you first. Her eyes widen just a little. She squeezes Emily's hand, a quiet signal. The reunion is low-key. No hugs, no big relief, just a small wave. They exchange casual words like strangers who happen to meet by chance. "Let's sit on that bench," Margaret says, pointing to a spot partly hidden by bushes. The girls want to feed the ducks first. Once you're seated, away from prying ears, Margaret speaks quietly, urgently. "He's been to our house 3 times in the past 2 weeks. He introduced himself as Dr. Richard Stanley, the school doctor, saying he was visiting all the families of new students. How was he, you ask, though you already know. Average height, dark hair, with some gray at the temples. Very polite, very smooth. The girls liked him right away. She swallows hard. He brought gifts, books for Emily, a doll for Sarah. He asked about London, about our life there, about you. What did you tell him at first? Everything he asked. It seemed innocent. Her eyes fill with tears. It wasn't until the third visit that I noticed something was off. He talked about details of our London home that we never mentioned. He even knew your mother's name, a name you never say. And then, he started talking about Jack the Ripper, how the case shook London. There was something in his eyes when he said it, a look that scared me. Do you feel that? You see the fear returning in her eyes. When was the last time you saw him? 4 days ago. He invited us to dinner at his place this Sunday. He said it would be a small gathering for British families in New York. Did you say yes? Yes, she admits, blushing with doubt. The girls were excited. He said there would be other children. Emily's finally made some friends here, and Sarah. She watches the girls feeding ducks by the lake. Sarah feels so lonely. She keeps talking about going back to London for her old friends. You follow her eyes and see your daughters. Emily looks taller now, almost like a young woman. Sarah still has that dreamy look, but she moves more carefully than before. We have to get them out of here. Today? Right now, Margaret. Where to? Maybe Boston, or further west, Chicago, somewhere he can't find them easily. And you? The question hangs in the air. Margaret already knows the answer, but needs you to say it. I'm staying, you say. This is our chance to trap him. He thinks I'll show up at dinner desperate and reckless, but you and the girls will disappear, and I'll be waiting. She shakes her head. He's smarter than that. If we don't show up for dinner, he'll know something's wrong. It's a risk we have to take. No, your voice is firm, surprising her. There's another way, one he won't expect. Over the next few hours, you come up with a plan. Margaret and the girls will go to dinner like normal, but be ready to leave at any time. You'll hide nearby, ready to step in. You'll also hire some local help, ex-cops or private security who aren't connected to the police or anyone Whitmore might watch. That's too risky, you say. We're all in danger. We already are, Margaret says calmly, ever since he decided to make us part of his game. At least this way, we have some control. You agree and set up an emergency way to communicate. Margaret gives you the dinner address, a fancy house in a rich Manhattan neighborhood. You kiss the girls quickly, hiding your feelings like you're saying goodbye to a stranger. Daddy, Sarah whispers, holding your hand a little longer. That doctor gives me the creeps sometimes. You smile, but your eyes don't. A 10-year-old's sharp instincts confirm what you already know. Whitmore can fool adults with his charm, but he can't hide who he really is from a child. In the next 2 days, you work non-stop. Using contacts at Irish bars, you find 3 former officers who will help for the right price. Tough guys, maybe shady, but strong and not connected to the police. You rent a room near the dinner house so you can watch from there. The house is a big Victorian mansion, set back from the street with a fancy garden and tall walls to keep neighbors out. Perfect for Whitmore. On Sunday, you put your men in place. One on the main street, one at the back, one near you to help fast. They're all armed and know just how dangerous Thomas Whitmore is. At 6, fancy cars start arriving. Well-dressed families go inside, greeted by a man you recognize instantly, even from far away. Thomas Whitmore, now calling himself Dr. Richard Stanley, the polite host of the party. When Margaret and the girls show up, your heart nearly stops. They look calm and elegant, but you notice how Margaret stays close to the girls. Whitmore greets them warmly, kissing Margaret's hand and making Sarah laugh. It all looks so normal, so innocent, that for a moment you wonder if you've been imagining things. Could Dr. Stanley really be just a nice doctor with no connection to the monster who's haunted you? That thought disappears fast. This is Thomas Whitmore, the man who killed and mutilated women across Europe and turned your life into a nightmare. Hours go by slowly. Through the lit windows, you see about 20 guests, including some kids, all enjoying a normal evening. Piano music plays softly. Around 9, some guests start leaving, parents taking sleepy kids home. But Margaret and her daughters stay, along with 2 other couples. Your chest tightens, they're not leaving. By 10, only your family and 1 couple are left. The lights downstairs go out, so the party has moved upstairs. The plan was for Margaret to leave early, but something's clearly changed. You signal Mealy, the closest guard, to get ready. You sense something's wrong. Then you see movement at the back of the house. A woman comes out a side door, hurrying through the garden. Even in low light you recognize Margaret. She's alone. Carefully, you move toward her, staying in the shadows. When she's close, you whisper her name. She turns quickly, fear changing to relief. "Thank God," she says quietly. "We have to get out now. The girls, where are they?" you ask, tense and on edge. Inside, he told the kids to check out his collection upstairs while the adults had brandy. The other couple let their kids go too. She grabs your arm. "I have to go back before he gets suspicious, but something's wrong. I saw him slipping something into the drinks when no one was looking." Your mind races. How many people are still inside? The other couple, their 2 kids, our girls, and him. And I saw at least 2 servants. "Did you drink the drink?" "I pretended to, but I spilled it when he wasn't watching." Her eyes get wide, full of fear. "We have to get the girls out of there." You decide right away. Go back. Say you needed fresh air. Try to bring the girls downstairs somehow. "I'll tell the men to move in, but you have to be inside to get Emily and Sarah without alerting him." Margaret looks brave. 5 minutes, she says. "If we're not out by then, go in." You watch her slip back through the side door and disappear into the night. You quickly gather your men and, with hand signals, call in the other 2. "Something's wrong," you say fast. "The guy inside might be drugging the guests. My wife is trying to get our daughters out. If they don't come out in 5 minutes, we go in." The minutes feel like hours as you watch the house, your anxiety growing with every second. 4 minutes. 4.5 minutes. No sign of Margaret or the girls. At 5 minutes, you give the signal to move. Carefully, weapons ready, you approach the side door. It's unlocked. You slip inside silently. The house is oddly quiet for a place that just had a party. No talking, no music, just heavy silence. In the main hall you find the first sign something's very wrong. The couple Margaret mentioned are out cold on the sofas, glasses knocked over, drinks spilled on the carpet. They've been drugged. Mealy checks the man's pulse quietly. They're alive but totally unconscious. Your heart races as you motion for the men to head to the stairs. Then you hear a sharp, desperate scream. Margaret's. Forgetting stealth, you rush upstairs, your men right behind. The scream comes from the end of the hallway, behind a heavy oak door. You try the handle. It's locked. You and Mealy push with all your strength. The door creaks but holds. On the second try, the lock breaks and you burst into what looks like a private studio or lab. The sight freezes your blood. Margaret is tied to a chair in the center, gagged but awake, her eyes wild with fear. The girls lie unconscious on a nearby couch, drugged but unharmed. The other couple's kids are on another sofa, just like that. And standing calmly before them is Thomas Whitmore. He's wearing a leather apron over spotless clothes and surgical gloves. A table nearby holds metal tools, scalpels, scissors, saws, lined up carefully. "Ah," he says with a polite smile. You finally joined us. I was starting to worry I'd miss the demonstration I prepared so carefully. You step forward, aiming your gun right at his face. Stay away from her. Whitmore doesn't seem fazed by the gun. He's predictable, always turning to threats when he can't outsmart someone. He sighs dramatically. 3 years of educational letters between us, and you still use such primitive tactics? He sounds like someone who's read too many mystery novels. He holds his hand up, then continues. But really, do you think I didn't plan for this moment? Every detail tonight was thought out. You signal melee to free Margaret, while the other men check on the kids. They're just sedated, Whitmore says calmly. The dose matches their weight and age. It won't cause lasting harm. I may be many things, but I've never been cruel to children. Cruel? You growl. You kidnapped my family, drugged my daughters, and you talk about cruelty. That's just words. He shrugs. I didn't harm them, never meant to. They're just part of our shared experiment. Margaret is free now, and the gag is off. She rushes to the girls, checking their pulses and pupils. They're okay, she says. Whitmore adds, they'll wake up in about 2 hours. Aside from some headaches, they'll be fine. Your attention splits between Whitmore and your family. Exactly what he wanted. Suddenly, with surprising speed for a man his age, Whitmore pulls a small device from his apron and activates it. A deafening explosion shakes the lower floor, quickly followed by another. The ground trembles under your feet, and the men you hired shout in alarm. The unconscious couple downstairs are probably dead now, Whitmore says calmly. As chaos breaks out, unfortunate but needed for the experiment, the secondary explosions will hit in about 30 seconds. They'll destroy the lower floors and block any normal escape. The reality hits you like a punch. This whole place is a trap. Whitmore seems almost offended. You'd expect less. Explosives are placed all over, timed to go off one after another. Maximum damage, no chance to escape. He checks his watch. 25 seconds. You shout to your men. Grab the kids, get out now. Holy and another man scoop up Emily and Sarah. The third takes the other couple's children. They sprint toward the door. Margaret hesitates, looking at you. Go, you say. I'll follow. Another explosion shakes the building. Smoke starts filling the hallway. 20 seconds, Whitmore says calmly. Interesting choice now, he adds. You can either try to catch me or save your family. The hall is filling with smoke. The only way out is the back service stairs, but they'll blow in the next explosion. Your wife and daughters might not make it through the smoke alone. You keep your gun steady as your mind races. Would you risk dying just to avoid being caught? Whitmore smiles, actually amused. Die, my dear Inspector? Who said anything about dying? With a quick move, he pulls a nearly invisible cord on the wall, revealing a secret passage behind it. 15 seconds. You step forward to catch him. But a closer, louder explosion shakes the floor and knocks you down. When you get up, Whitmore is already halfway through the passage. That was a fascinating experiment, he calls over his shoulder. Your loyalty to justice versus your loyalty to family. In the end, you'll choose your family. I always knew that. That's what makes you predictable and beatable. His smile grows wider. 10 seconds, Inspector. I suggest you run. You want to chase him badly, but another explosion and the sound of falling wood snap you back. Margaret and the girls need you. If you keep trying to catch Whitmore here, you'll all die. You curse under your breath and run toward the hallway. It's filled with thick smoke and blocked by burning debris. The main staircase is gone. Your only chance is the service staircase Whitmore mentioned. At the end of the hall, you find Margaret. She's back looking for you. Where are the girls? You yell over the roar of the fire to the men. She screams back, rushing up the back stairs. Let's go. You run together down the side hallway, the smoke choking you and making it hard to see. A final, much bigger explosion shakes the whole house as you reach the service stairs. The steps shake dangerously as you hurry down. On the second-floor landing, part of the stairs below has collapsed, leaving a nearly 6-foot gap. "We have to jump," you say, holding Margaret tightly. "You first." She looks at the gap, scared, but doesn't hesitate. With determination, she leaps over and lands shaky but safe. You follow right after, nearly losing your balance. When you finally reach the ground floor, the heat is almost unbearable. Flames swallow the front of the house, leaving only a narrow path to the back door. You burst outside, coughing and gasping just as the whole building starts to collapse. The men you hired wait at a safe distance. The 4 unconscious children lie on the grass. As the mansion falls in, you realize the terrible truth. Whitmore escaped again. Worse, he played the situation perfectly, so you had no real choice. Chasing him would have meant leaving your family to die. In the days after, as Emily and Sarah wake up from the sedatives and authorities investigate what the newspapers call the tragic fire that killed a prominent family, you understand the full scope of Whitmore's plan. The mansion belonged to Dr. James Wilson, a respected doctor who traveled with his wife to Boston a week before, leaving the house with a trusted British cousin. The burned body found in the rubble was mistakenly identified as Dr. Richard Stanley, the heroic victim who supposedly tried to save the guests. But there's no record of Dr. Stanley at any New York school or hospital. The man never existed before showing up in your family's life weeks ago. 3 days after the fire, you get the 14th letter delivered to your hotel by a street kid who disappears before you can question him. "My most dedicated adversary," the letter reads, "Our experiment is complete, and the results were exactly what I expected. Faced with the impossible choice of catching me or saving your family, you chose your family. A morally admirable decision, but scientifically predictable. Our correspondence and professional relationship end here. I'm leaving America for a while, heading to continents better suited for my interests. Maybe the East will offer new opportunities for my research. As for you and your lovely family, I suggest going back to London. My work will keep me away from England for some time." Margaret seems worn out, and the girls would benefit from familiar surroundings. Emily shows great potential in medicine. I noticed it during our talks. A sharp mind for someone so young. Sarah's innocence is still charming. I'll miss our exchanges over the past 3 years. I hope you've gained a deeper understanding of human complexity, the thin line between sanity and madness, genius and monstrosity. As a final gift, here's a truth. Thomas Whitmore isn't my real name. It's just one of many identities I've used. My true name and purpose will remain mysteries you'll never solve. Farewell, esteemed Inspector. It's been enlightening. Eternally your intellectual opponent, the man you knew as Jack. The letter confirms what you already knew. Whitmore disappeared again, probably to another continent. The defeat hits hard, but looking at Margaret and the girls safe from the fire, you don't regret your choice. A month later, you return to London. Scotland Yard welcomes you with relief and frustration. Glad you and your family survived, but disappointed Whitmore escaped again. Could he come back someday? Auber asks during a meeting about closing the case. Men like him rarely stop, you say. Yes, Auber agrees, but not in London. Not as long as you're here. The case stays open, but slowly moves into the unsolved archives. Life goes on. You get back to regular police work, dealing with ordinary crimes that seem small compared to the battle you had with Whitmore. Margaret never fully recovers. She checks locks over and over, jumps at sudden noises, and never lets the girls be alone in public. Fear stays with her, even though she insists Whitmore won't come back. After getting over the initial shock, Emily becomes deeply fascinated with criminology and psychology. She spends hours reading about famous crimes, profiles of killers, and how criminals think. It seems like her way of trying to understand what happened to her family, trying to make sense of the horror they went through. Sarah, on the other hand, suffers from bad nightmares. On the worst nights, she wakes up screaming about a man with lifeless eyes. Over time, with patience and love, these nightmares happen less often, but some of her childhood innocence is gone forever. For you, the loss still feels raw. Late at night, when the house is quiet, you go back over the case files, studying every detail, looking for clues you might have missed or connections you haven't made yet. Years pass and the girls grow up. Emily chooses a career in forensic medicine, using science to help solve crimes. Sarah becomes a teacher, focused on protecting children's innocence. Margaret finds comfort volunteering with vulnerable women, helping them build safer lives. Sometimes reports come in from far-off places, India, China, Africa, about crimes that match a strange pattern. Women killed with surgical skill, organs removed with expert knowledge, always 5 victims before the murders suddenly stop. In your private office, you keep a world map with red pins, marking each location, tracking the trail of the man you once knew as Thomas Whitmore. Then, in 1898, 10 years after those original events in Whitechapel, you receive a mysterious package with no note. Just a box containing a few things: an old doll you recognize from Sarah's childhood, a faded photo of your family taken in London before everything began, and a newspaper clipping about the new head of a prestigious medical school in Calcutta. The message is clear. He's still alive, still watching, still remembering the twisted experiment you were part of. You think briefly about reopening the case, maybe even traveling to India, but then you look at your family, healed and at peace, and decide some fights just aren't worth continuing. By 1913, long retired from the police, you come across an obituary in an international journal. It's for Dr. Thomas Matthews, a famous surgeon and teacher who died in Shanghai at 63. He was known for advanced surgical techniques and trained hundreds of students. The photo shows an older man, but there's no doubt. It's the same one you chased across continents, the same man who terrorized London as Jack the Ripper, the same man who threatened your family and escaped the New York fire. You cut out the obituary and add it to your private collection. There's no way to know if he really died, or if it's just another fake identity. Either way, it feels like the end of a dark chapter in your life. That night, you sit in your garden with Margaret outside your modest home near London. Emily stops by with her husband and 2 kids. Sarah is coming tomorrow with her fiancé to share their wedding plans. Life goes on. Wounds have healed. New beginnings have grown from the ashes of terror. Do you think it's really over? Margaret asks quietly, looking at the obituary. I don't know, you answer honestly. He was a master at hiding, but if he's alive, he must be very old now. So are we all, she smiles, touching the wrinkles that show both hard times and happiness. At least we have that, she says, growing old together, watching our daughters grow up. He couldn't take that away from us. You squeeze her hand gently. Maybe that's what matters, you say. Not who won, but who kept going after the game ended. As stars fill the night sky, you finally put the obituary aside. Margaret squeezes your hand, understanding your thoughts without words. Let's go inside, she says softly. The kids are waiting for dinner. You stand, leaving Jack the Ripper's memory in the garden. Inside, light, warmth, and family await. The real victory no killer, no matter how clever, could ever take away. And somewhere, maybe only in your memories or in some far-off city under a new name, Thomas Whitmore's shadow lingers, a ghost haunting history's dark corners. An unsolved mystery, a monster who hid so well behind a respectable mask that the world never really knew who he was. The true identity of Jack the Ripper is still unknown. His real reasons, his purpose behind the bloody crimes, people keep guessing, writing books, debating. But for you, the case is finally closed. Not with a big triumph, but with quiet acceptance. Some monsters slip away. Some questions never get answers. Some battles don't end with a clear win, just survival. And maybe that survival is victory enough. Written in blood, you realize Whitmore never just wanted to escape justice. He wanted to destroy you, your job, your family, your sanity, everything that made you who you are. Now, the final stage of his plan is about to start. Your hands shake as you memorize the New York address he left in his bloody message. He's not just daring you to follow him. He's inviting you to one last showdown where your family is part of his twisted game. Racing to Scotland Yard, you find Aberline studying maps covered in red marks. Supposed sightings of Whitmore you now know were useless. He's in New York, you say, dropping your notes on the desk. Or he will be soon, and my family is in danger. Aberline looks up, worn from years chasing a ghost. How can you be sure? He left a message, you say. This isn't a game anymore, it's a trap. Here's the address, where Margaret and the girls are staying. It can't be a coincidence. Aberline warns you that going there alone, away from backup, is a trap. Of course it is, you say, frustration turning to urgency. What else can I do? He knows where they are. He's probably watching them right now. If not, I can't even say it. The thought is too terrible. Aberline sighs and rubs his tired eyes. How much backup do you need? I can try to get permission for a small task force to go with you, though dealing with international stuff means tons of red tape. There's no time for that, you cut him off. He wants me alone. He was clear about it. If he sees me bring cops, I don't know how he'll react. Just thinking about Margaret and the girls as hostages sends chills down your spine. I have to do it his way, at least at first. That's exactly what he wants. Aberline protests, standing up. You alone, desperate in unfamiliar territory. That's a death wish. Maybe, you admit, but it's the only shot I've got to save my family. Over the next few hours, you and Aberline come up with a plan. Risky, but with a small chance. You'll go alone like Whitmore demands, but Aberline will send a secret message to the NYPD, warning them without giving away details that could put your family in danger if intercepted. I can't officially bring in the Americans without top-level approval, he says, as he types the message. But I have a personal contact in New York. A detective who used to work in London. He'll get how serious this is without needing all the details. You nod, already thinking about your next steps. Booking the first ship to America, making sure you have enough money for a long stay, and getting weapons that won't draw attention. Here, Aberline says, handing you a thick envelope. My contacts got these for you, fake IDs to keep you under the radar. He opens a drawer and pulls out a Webley Bulldog revolver and some bullets. Not standard issue, but reliable and easy to hide. Your hand hesitates over the gun. In 15 years on the force, you've never had to use deadly force. Even in the worst situations, there was always another way. But this is different. You know deep down that talking or threats won't stop a man who turned murder into an art. Thanks, you say, slipping the revolver into your pocket. 2 days later, you board the RMS Tick, the fast White Star Line ship. Still, the crossing will take 5 days. 5 days of torture with no news about your family. You won't know if Whitmore has attacked or if Margaret and the girls are safe. Your small cabin feels like a prison. You spend hours going over every piece of info on Whitmore. His habits, weaknesses, anything that might help in the showdown ahead. You analyze his letters word by word, searching for clues about his mind, his motives, his plans. Sleepless nights come as you plan and rethink strategies. Charging in means certain death. He'll have traps set. Trying to warn Margaret by messenger risks the message being caught and making things worse. Alerting local police without proof only causes delays and doubt. On the fourth day at sea, a brutal storm hits the North Atlantic. The ship rocks as huge waves crash over the deck. Passengers are told to stay in their rooms while the crew fights to keep the ship steady. You stay awake, not scared of the sea, but haunted by thoughts of Whitmore closing in on your family. Trapped on this powerless ship, thousands of miles away across the wild ocean, relief turns to panic when the captain says the storm will delay arrival by at least 2 days. Every hour lost gives Whitmore more time to carry out his sick plan. Finally, after 10 days that feel like forever, New York's skyline appears. The new Statue of Liberty watches over the harbor, a bitter symbol of hope, but immigration feels like a test meant to break you. Long lines, bored officers slowly checking papers, endless questions about your reason for coming. You stick to your cover story, British merchant on business, while your body aches to act. Once cleared, you head straight to the address Margaret gave you. A modest boarding house in a middle-class Manhattan neighborhood. The landlady, an older woman with a suspicious look, tells you that Senora Wilson, Margaret's fake name, and her daughters left that morning and haven't come back yet. Are they okay? You ask, trying to sound calm even though your heart is pounding. Have they had any visitors lately? She narrows her eyes. And you, are you a cousin? You quickly say with a hopeful smile. I just arrived from England today. It was supposed to be a surprise. She doesn't seem convinced but replies, They're fine. The girls are polite, quiet. Then she hesitates. A doctor came by last week, said he was doing routine health checks for local school kids. Very polite man, British accent like yours, well-dressed, dark hair with some gray at the temples. Too fancy for a public school doctor, I thought. She looks at you. Why do you ask? You answer without thinking, your mind racing with terrible possibilities. Whitmore not only found your family, but he's also wormed his way into their lives, pretending to be an authority with access to children. Did she say where they went today? You ask. Madame Wilson mentioned an exhibition at the Fifth Avenue Museum. They should be back before dinner. You thank her and hurry out, your heart hammering. His description fits Whitmore perfectly. He's already found Margaret and the girls, made first contact, and is likely figuring out their weaknesses for his final move. The American Museum of Natural History on Fifth Avenue is packed with families and tourists, walking among dinosaur skeletons and stuffed animals. You push through the crowds, scanning every face for your family or the man who promised to destroy them. After nearly an hour, you spot them. Margaret stands by an exotic bird display with Emily and Sarah beside her. They look so normal, so unaware, that you almost cry with relief, until you see him. Whitmore is less than 10 meters away, partly hidden behind a fancy pillar, watching them with that same cold, calculating look only you know. He's changed little since London, maybe more wrinkles and gray, but his eyes are the same. Sharp, cold, studying your family like a scientist studies a rare specimen. Your hand twitches toward the revolver in your inside pocket. One clean shot, and Thomas Whitmore would be gone for good. He'd never threaten your family, or anyone else again. But the museum is full of innocent people, kids everywhere, including your own daughters. They'd be terrified if they saw violence like that, and without proof, it would be you who ends up the criminal. You choose a different way. Moving quietly through the crowd, you get ready to catch Margaret as soon as she steps away from the exhibit. The girls are totally absorbed by a colorful bird of paradise display, giving you a moment alone. "Margaret," you whisper from behind. She freezes, then turns, eyes wide with shock and recognition. "You!" she breathes. "How?" "No time," you say urgently. "We're all in danger. He's here." Her face goes pale. No name needs to be said. "Where?" "Behind the pillar to the right. Don't look at him." You squeeze her arm. "We have to go now." Calm, like nothing's wrong. Though Margaret feels the tension. Years of shared terror have taught you how to communicate without words. "Girls!" she calls out, her voice steadier than you feel. "It's late. We need to get to our next appointment." Emily, almost 14, meets your eyes with a seriousness beyond her years. Sarah, still just 10 and innocent, hesitates, but follows when Emily takes her hand firmly. "Daddy!" Sarah cries, stepping forward, but Emily gently holds her back. "Shh," she whispers. Together, you head for the nearest exit. Careful not to look back where Whitmore was standing. The weight of the revolver against your chest is a constant reminder. If it comes to it, you'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe. Outside, you quickly lead your family into the waiting carriage. "Hotel Irving," you tell the driver urgently. Only once you are moving do you allow yourself a small moment of relief. The girls throw their arms around you. Sarah breaks down in tears. Emily stays composed, but you see tears shining in her eyes. "He was there, wasn't he?" Margaret whispers, still holding the girls. "The doctor, Dr. Stanley," you say, remembering Margaret's words. Dr. Richard Stanley, the school doctor doing routine health checks on kids and immigrants, so convincing, so polite. "He came twice last week." Margaret shudders. "I only started to suspect yesterday when he mentioned things about London we never told him." Your stomach tightens. Whitmore didn't just find us. He wormed his way in, earned our trust, walked right into our home. "What else did he ask? What did he do?" you ask urgently. "He asked about our health, our routines." He seemed especially interested in the girls. She glances at Emily and Sarah. "He invited us to dinner at his place this Sunday, said it'd be a small gathering of British families in New York." "And you agreed?" you ask, keeping calm. "Yes," she admits, cheeks flushing with guilt and suspicion. The girls were so excited. He said other children would be there. The meaning is chilling. That dinner is Whitmore's final trap, a chance to capture the whole family at once, finishing the twisted game he started years ago. At the hotel, you set up a quick security plan. You check the room for any possible entrances or bugs. You move the furniture to create makeshift barricades. You tell Margaret not to open the door for anyone but you, no matter what papers they show. Once everything is set, Emily speaks up. She's grown so much since you last saw her, not just physically but in how she thinks. "Why does he keep coming after us after all this time?" You want to give her an honest answer but pause, watching Sarah play quietly with her worn doll. He wants to finish his experiment. Finally, you say carefully, "We're all part of a study about fear and trauma. It started in Whitechapel as a test of anatomy but became something more, psychological. He wants to hurt us." Emily says bluntly, "That's not a question." "Yes," you admit, "or at least use you to hurt me." "So, what do we do?" Margaret asks, sitting heavily on the bed, the weight of the last few years clear in her worried eyes that never stop watching. "We need to get you out of here," you answer without hesitation. "To a safe place where Whitmore can't find them. Maybe Boston or Chicago." "And you?" Margaret asks, though she already knows. "I stay. This is our chance to trap him. He expects me to show up at dinner desperate and reckless. Instead, you and the girls will disappear, and I'll be waiting." She shakes her head firmly. "No, he's too smart. If we don't show, he'll know something's wrong. It's a risk we have to take." "No," your voice is strong, surprising her. "There's another way he won't expect. Over the next few hours, you make a new plan. Margaret and the girls will go to dinner as planned, but be ready to leave any time. You'll stay hidden nearby, ready to step in if things go wrong. Meanwhile, you'll hire a small team of men. Ex-cops or private guards with no connection to the police, Whitmore might watch, through contacts in Irish bars. They'll help for the right price. It's incredibly risky. At first, you protest. "We are putting you all in direct danger." "We're already in danger," Margaret says calmly. "Ever since he made us part of his game. At least this way, we have some control." Emily, sitting quietly, adds, "We have to finish this, Dad. We can't keep running forever." Even Sarah, who'd been playing quietly, surprises everyone. "That doctor gives me the creeps." He smiles, but his eyes are as cold as stone. A 10-year-old's gut feeling confirms what you already knew. Whitmore can fool adults with his charm, but he can't hide who he really is from a child. Over the next 2 days, you work non-stop, finding 3 ex-cops willing to help for good pay. Tough guys, maybe a little shady, but strong and not connected to any official agencies Whitmore might be watching. Aberline's contact in the NYPD, Detective Sullivan, can't offer much official help without proof, but he does give you Whitmore's current address, an impressive mansion in a wealthy Manhattan neighborhood, oddly registered to a British doctor who's traveling in Europe. "This place is perfect for whatever he's planning," Sullivan says as he looks over the area. It's isolated, surrounded by tall walls, with neighbors far enough away not to hear any screams. The description sends a chill through you, but you push it aside and focus on memorizing every way in and out. On Sunday evening, you place your men carefully, one on the main street, one at the back, and one near you, all armed and briefed on how dangerous Whitmore is. From your hideout in an empty building overlooking the mansion, you watch carriages arrive right at 7. Well-dressed families enter, greeted by a man you immediately recognize, Thomas Whitmore, now calling himself Dr. Richard Stanley, playing the role of the polite host. When Margaret and the girls arrive, your heart nearly stops. They look elegant and calm, but you notice the tension in Margaret's stance and how she keeps the girls close. Whitmore greets them warmly, kisses Margaret's hand, and even makes Sarah laugh. The scene looks so normal, so innocent, you almost question your own mind. Could it be a paranoid fantasy? Could Dr. Stanley really just be a friendly doctor, not the monster who's haunted you all these years? The thought fades fast. This is Thomas Whitmore, Jack the Ripper, the man who killed and mutilated women across European cities, turning your life into a nightmare. Through the lit windows, you watch the dinner go on. About 20 guests, including kids, all seeming to enjoy a normal evening as piano music plays softly. Around 9, things start to change. Several guests begin to leave, adults taking sleepy children with them. But Margaret and her daughters stay, along with 2 other couples. Your chest tightens. They're not leaving. By 10, only your family and 1 other couple remain. The main floor lights go out, meaning the party has moved upstairs. Margaret was supposed to leave early, but something's clearly wrong. You signal Omley, the closest man, to get ready to move toward the house. You sense danger. Then you see movement at the back. A woman comes out of a side door, moving fast across the garden. Even in the dark, you recognize Margaret, moving carefully. You slip toward her, staying in the shadows, and whisper her name when you're close. She spins around. Fear flashes, then relief. "Thank God," she whispers. "We have to get out now." "The girls, where are they?" you ask, nerves on edge. "Inside," she said. The kids were taken upstairs to see his collection of curiosities while the adults drank brandy. The other couple let their kids go too. She grabs your arm. "I have to go back before he gets suspicious, but something's wrong." I saw him slipping something into the drinks when he thought no one was watching. Your mind races. How many are still inside? The other couple, their 2 kids, our girls, him, and at least 2 servants. Did you drink? I pretended, but poured mine out when he wasn't looking. Her eyes grow wide with fear. We need to get the girls out. You decide immediately. Go back. Say you needed fresh air or try to bring the girls down with you. I'll tell the men to move in, but we need you inside to get Emily and Sarah out without causing a scene. Margaret's eyes blaze with determination. 5 minutes. If we're not out in 5 minutes, you go in. You watch her slip back inside through the side door. You quickly gather your men and signal the others. Something's wrong, you say. The man inside may be drugging the guests. My wife is trying to get the girls out. If they don't come out in 5 minutes, we go in. Minutes drag on like hours. 4 minutes. 4.5. No sign of Margaret or the girls. When 5 minutes pass, you give the signal. Cautiously, you approach the side door, weapons ready. The door is unlocked. You enter quietly into what looks like an empty kitchen. The house is eerily quiet for a place that just held a party. No voices, no music, only heavy silence. In the main hall, you find proof something's wrong. The couple Margaret mentioned lies unconscious on the sofas, glasses spilled on the carpet, drugged. Amelie checks the man's pulse quietly. They're alive, but out cold. Your heart races as you motion for the men to head upstairs. Then you hear it, a sharp, desperate scream. Margaret's scream. Dropping any hope of stealth, you rush upstairs with your men. The scream comes from the end of the hallway, behind a heavy oak door. You try the handle, it's locked. You and Amelie shove the door with all your strength. It creaks but holds. The second time, the lock breaks, and you burst inside what looks like a private study or lab. The sight freezes your blood forever. Margaret is tied to a chair, her clothes torn, face twisted in pure terror. Her eyes lock on you, full of despair. A deep cut on her throat still bleeds, soaking the elegant dress she wore tonight. The lively, strong eyes you saw minutes ago are now glazed with shock and fading life. Next to her, Whitmore stands calm, wearing a blood-stained surgical apron and holding a bloody scalpel like it's just a kitchen knife. The girls and the other kids lie unconscious on couches at the back. Drugged, but still alive. Ah, Whitmore says with a polite smile, you finally decided to join us. You're a bit early, but luckily I've already started the main demonstration. Time seems to slow. Every detail burns into your mind. The shiny surgical tools lined up on the table, the pool of blood spreading beneath Margaret's chair, the cold, scientific look in Whitmore's eyes as he watches you react. Your wife is a fascinating specimen, he says, like a professor talking about a rare subject. Remarkable endurance. She didn't scream until I started operating on her carotid artery. He looks at Margaret with something close to admiration. Most people give up long before this. Something inside you breaks. It's not just your heart. It's like your whole sense of humanity crumbles. With a roar, you rush forward, aiming your revolver at Whitmore's head. "Monster!" you shout, your finger trembling on the trigger. But Whitmore doesn't flinch. He's always so predictable. He sighs at your anger like it's some meaningless emotion he can't understand. He steps casually to the side, putting himself partly behind Margaret, using her as a shield. If you shoot, you'll likely hit your wife. Not that it matters to her now. At that moment, the men you hired come into the room behind you, weapons ready and aimed at Whitmore. Interesting, Whitmore says, watching them like a scientist. You hired mercenaries instead of trusting the police. Smart move. I see you've learned something about me. Margaret tries to speak but only makes a hoarse sound. Blood bubbles at her lips as she looks at you, then at the sleeping girls. Her eyes send a clear message. Save her. Time is running out. Whitmore comments casually. Your wife has about 2 minutes before she loses consciousness from blood loss. The girls are just sedated. They'll wake in a few hours. No lasting harm, unless something goes wrong. He smiles, but it doesn't reach his cold eyes. You face a tough choice. Catch me and let your wife die, or let me go and try to save her. Quite the ethical puzzle. You quickly signal Omli, who moves into position for a clean shot. The others spread out too. Whitmore watches, interested. Ah, flanking me, he says. Good tactic, but not enough with the time you have. Margaret makes another strangled sound as blood runs down her neck and chest. Her eyes start to lose focus. You know, with crushing certainty, she's dying right before you. Every second you spend with Whitmore wastes the tiny chance of saving her. It's over, Whitmore, you say, voice shaking a little. You can't escape this time. He laughs, a real laugh. Escape? You don't get it, Inspector. I'm not trying to run. I'm finishing the experiment I started 3 years ago. He slowly moves his right hand toward his apron pocket. You tighten your grip on the trigger. Move that hand 1 more inch, and it'll be your last movement, you warn. Whitmore sighs like someone tired of bad detective stories. He keeps his hand still. You really think I didn't plan for this moment? That every detail wasn't thought out? Then, quick as lightning, he pulls a small device from his pocket and sets it off. A deafening explosion shakes the lower floor, followed by another. The house trembles beneath your feet. The men you hired shout in alarm. The unconscious couple downstairs is dead now. Whitmore says calmly as chaos breaks loose. While things get messy, unfortunate but necessary for our experiment. The next explosions will start in about 30 seconds, destroying the lower floors and blocking all normal escapes. It hits you like a punch. He planned this from the start. The whole place is a trap. Whitmore sounds almost offended. You expected less. Explosives placed all over, timed perfectly to cause maximum damage and leave almost no chance to get out. He checks his watch. 25 seconds now. At that moment, Margaret finds her last bit of strength. With a violent jerk, she tips over her chair, causing a brief distraction. Omli takes the chance and shoots Whitmore in the shoulder, making him stumble. With a furious roar, Whitmore rushes to the side wall and pulls a hidden lever, revealing a secret passage. Get the girls, get out, you yell. Omli and another man grab Emily and Sarah. The third scoops up the other couple's kids. They rush for the door while you kneel beside Margaret, who's barely breathing now, eyes almost closed. Margaret, you whisper, tearing part of your shirt to press on her wound. A desperate, useless gesture. Her eyes open once, locking on yours with a faint spark of clarity. She tries to speak, but only blood bubbles at her lips. Her gaze shifts toward the door where the girls are being carried out. The message is clear. Go. Save them. Another explosion rocks the house. Smoke fills the hall. 20 seconds. Whitmore's voice echoes from the secret passage. Now, the tough choice. Catch me or save your family. The hall's filling with smoke. The only way out is the service stairs at the back, and they'll be destroyed soon. Your wife can't be saved. Your daughters might not make it through the smoke alone. You glance at Margaret one last time. Her breathing has stopped. Her eyes are fixed and glassy. She's gone. Her last scream seems to echo forever. You sprint toward the secret passage, determined not to let Whitmore get away again. The tunnel is narrow and dark, lit only by flashes from the ongoing explosions. You run as fast as you can, guided by the sound of footsteps ahead. The passage slopes down, curves, and splits several ways. An underground maze clearly made long ago as an escape route. Behind you, part of the tunnel collapses with a crash, blocking your way back. The house must be falling apart. What feels like hours has probably been just minutes. You finally come out into an alley about 2 blocks from the house. The street is chaos. People running toward the fire trucks screaming in the distance. In all the confusion, you can't tell where Whitmore went. A trail of blood from his wound runs for a few yards, then suddenly stops. He's hurt but not dead, and he knows the area well. Desperate, you run back to the burning mansion, going around the block to the main entrance. The building is almost completely engulfed, flames shooting 40 feet into the night sky. Firefighters fight helplessly while a crowd watches from a safe distance. Omley comes out of the crowd, his face covered in soot. "The girls are safe," he says, "on their way to the hospital, but your wife, she's gone." You answer, your voice strangely empty, and Whitmore got away again. The next days blur into legal stuff, funeral arrangements, and trying to comfort Emily and Sarah, who wake up in the hospital to the terrible news that their mother died in the fire. The New York police investigate the fire as a crime, but with the evidence destroyed and no body found for Whitmore, many doubt your story. Official records list Dr. Richard Stanley as one of the victims, his body believed lost in the fire along with the house. A week after the fire, an envelope slips under the door of your hotel room, where you and the girls are staying. No stamp, no return address, just your name in familiar, elegant handwriting. Your hands shake as you open it, already knowing what's inside. The letter is written in red ink, which you suspect isn't ordinary. "My final worthy opponent. By the time you read this, I'll be far away." Your determination to protect your family was impressive, but not enough. I always knew we'd reach this moment. The final test to see how a man reacts when he loses the most important part of himself violently. Margaret was remarkable to the end. She didn't scream even when I started my work. Her last act wasn't to save herself, but to save her daughters. A fascinating show of maternal instinct over self-preservation. Now, the question is, what will you do with this complete defeat? How will a man who spent years chasing me respond when he fails at the most critical moment? I have a few guesses. 1. You'll fall into despair, end your own life, and leave your daughters orphans. Understandable for a weaker mind. 2. You'll devote yourself to revenge, becoming obsessed and twisted, eventually destroying yourself and pushing your daughters away. 3. You'll try to forget, bury the pain and lie to your girls that everything's fine until the lie consumes you. 4. You'll find a way to balance caring for your daughters while still hunting me, torn forever between being a father and seeking justice. I'd bet on number 2. Your persistence shows an obsession, made worse by trauma and loss. It'll be interesting to watch from a distance. The girls will be fine, I guess. Kids are tough. Emily's smart and might go into medicine. Sarah's sensitive, which will help in a world that often lacks kindness. As for me, new adventures call. Maybe the East or African colonies, where a European doctor can work with little oversight. This is where our story ends. No more letters, no more games. The experiment is over, data collected, conclusions made. If it means anything, know Margaret holds a special place in my memory. The fire in her eyes was truly inspiring, a remarkable example of strength. Goodbye, my worthy rival. You were the best I ever faced. Forever your teacher, Thomas Whitmore. P.S. Ever wonder if this moment was the real goal? Not the Whitechapel murders, not our long battle, but this very moment. Watching how a man like you handles total loss. Maybe you were the real subject of my experiment all along. The letter slips from your shaking hands. Sitting alone in the hotel room while the girls sleep, exhausted in the next room, you feel the heavy weight of total defeat. Whitmore has won. Not just by escaping justice and killing Margaret, but by tearing apart your life and turning you into someone you barely recognize. The revolver is still in your pocket. It would be so easy to end it all, end the pain, the guilt, the failure. A permanent escape from an impossible situation. Your fingers brush the cold metal, seriously thinking about something you once thought unthinkable. Then you hear a soft sound from the next room. Sarah crying quietly in her sleep, like she has every night since the fire. Reality hits hard again. The girls have already lost their mother. They're scared, fragile, completely dependent on you. If you choose the easy way out, you give Whitmore the final victory, not just by destroying yourself, but by leaving Emily and Sarah alone in a world full of loss. With hands still trembling, you put the revolver back. Whitmore may have won this battle, shattered part of your soul, but he won't have the complete victory. The girls are all that's left. The last piece of humanity in a world suddenly empty. For them, you'll keep going. For them, you'll find the strength to face days without Margaret, and nights haunted by your failure to protect her. And maybe someday, far in the future, you'll find Whitmore again. Not out of blind revenge or obsession, but for justice, for Margaret, for all his victims, and to stop future tragedies while he's still free. In the years ahead, you'll dedicate your life to two things that seem at odds: raising two strong girls despite their trauma, and carefully tracking reports of the man known by many names, including Jack the Ripper. Emily will choose forensic medicine, turning her horror into a mission to help victims. Sarah will become a teacher, supporting kids who've been hurt by monsters like Whitmore. From time to time, you'll hear about murders in far-off places. Calcutta, Shanghai, Cairo, always a series of carefully done killings that stop after 5 victims. But you'll never catch him. You'll never prove all those crimes are his. Jack the Ripper will stay officially unknown. His Whitechapel murders still an unsolved mystery in Scotland Yard's files. His later crimes will live only in your private notes and theories. The case will never close. The monster will never face real justice. The story won't end with a big victory, but with a quiet, lasting echo of injustice. But your daughters will survive, grow, and thrive, turning tragedy into meaning in ways Whitmore, with all his dark intelligence, never imagined. And maybe, in that deeper way, he didn't win after all.